listening to Unscripted Moments, a podcast about Propagandhi. On this episode, we are discussing, with friends like these, who the fuck needs Cointelpro. Track 6 from Today's Empire's Tomorrow's Ashes. The demo version is also track 17 on 2021's remixed and remastered version of Today's Empire's Tomorrow's Ashes. The live version of this song opens live from occupied territory, an official bootleg recorded in 2003 at the Zoo in Winnipeg.
Fantastic. Well, it's great to be here, Steve, for recording episode 130, and it's our last ever episode about songs on Today's Empire's Tomorrow's Ashes. So I'm very excited about this.
What a wild ride it's been.
Yeah,
I,
it's
I
been
don't know
crazy,
how
man.
many have I done from this record. I can't remember how many I've done.
Not that many. I mean, we've been, messing around for quite a long time now, doing as many weird little side songs and stuff like that as possible. And this is a song that I have procrastinated extremely hard for 5 years. And you did something on the podcast with Allie Cordisco
Yes.
from Transgressive and Project Roenwolfe and Judicator, among others, about Cointelpro. So we will hear Allie's portion later where you and Allie discuss Cointelpro. Gosh, it's probably been 2 years now at this point.
Oh yeah, that was forever ago.
Yeah. So anyway, we're excited to do our last ever Cointelpro. Our last ever episode for today's Empire's Tomorrow's Ashes. What a delight! But we've got some other fun stuff to do first before we, get all heavy with an all too relevant, unfortunately, song at the moment. So yeah, we'll chat about some fun stuff for a while, and then we'll get to the song later on.
So this episode is technically would be my birthday episode because my birthday is in how many days is it? Like 4 days? Yeah, 4 days.
I
Four
will
days
try
from
to
now.
release this on your birthday. I will try to release this episode on June 15th. Is your birthday Father's Day?
Yes.
Oh, well, I will celebrate your birthday on Father's Day. Hooray.
So I'm turning 45 years old this year, and this weekend my age showed probably more so than it has in a very long time, and so we have Zoe here on the show to embarrass me.
Zoe, welcome, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Greg.
All right, so Steve texted me the other day, and he says that he is suddenly old, and he has a story that you would like to share. So I'm delighted that you're here to publicly embarrass Steve on the record, which will be on the internet forever. So this is something that people will be able to listen to 15 years from now. So just take it away and lay it all out there.
Amazing. Yeah, so I don't know, Greg, if Steve has been keeping you updated, but we've been redoing our backyard for the last couple of weeks, right? So we've been making regular trips to our local Rona. So this weekend we went as we needed.
So for all the non-Canadian listeners, Rona is like our version of Home Depot or Lowe's, basically.
It's Lowe's.
It used to be
It is
Lowe's,
Lowe's.
and now it's Rona.
Cool.
Yeah, so we were there, and we needed to get 4x4s, a 6x6. And so when you buy 4x4s or 6x6, they're big, right? And only come in 8 feet. But we have a Kia Soul, so 8 feet of a 4x4 or 6x6 doesn't fit in our car. So we're like, okay, we have to get them cut down. So we asked a guy, can you guys cut these? And he said, yeah, but we have to do it by hand because their machine doesn't fit the thickness of pieces of wood.
And like a 6x6 is very thick. Like it's we're talking thick. Like railway tie thick, a 6x6.
Yeah, those are huge.
The average person is not purchasing a 6x6 piece of wood.
Yeah, this is insane to me that you guys are doing this, by the way.
It's to build it. We needed to build a table, and it has a brace piece that fits a 6x6. So
nice.
Anyway, so we go and we feel really guilty because we know this is going to be to cut these with a handsaw.
I say to the guy, I was like, no, you're not cutting those with a handsaw. This is not happening. It's going to take forever. He's like, no, man, it'll take 5 minutes. I was like, 5 minutes? He's like, yeah, it'll be a nice break. I was like, okay.
So whatever, we pay for everything. We get outside with this guy. He's maybe in his like 20s, I'd say, probably like early 20s. Like he's like a
He's in
summer job, like student.
yeah,
Yeah.
university. He's taking psych in university, and his name is Bruno. Wonderful, wonderful guy.
Yes. Shout out to Bruno at the Barton Rona in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. But so we go outside. They just cut them like outside of the door, and he literally has like a handsaw, like just a regular, not even a big one, like not a bow saw, like just a regular old standard handsaw. Yeah. And so he's like, "Yep, no problem. I got this. You know, we're gonna teamwork this." So he starts, and then he does the 6x6 pretty much.
No, he started with a 4x4.
He started with a 4x4. And then Steve's feeling really guilty at this point because he's making this kid cut all this wood. I guess I felt less guilty, but whatever. But so Steve's like, let me take a turn. He's like, we'll trade off. It's all good. We'll both work on this together. We'll tag team it because he
I was
feels
like,
so
I'll do
bad.
one, you do one, I do one. You do one, I do one. It's perfect.
Steve, you got to let Bruno do the thing, man.
You gotta let Bruno do the thing. So anyways, so Steve goes to cut one of the 4x4s, and it probably took him 10 minutes. No joke, like just took him forever. He's like, okay, I need to tap out. Like, I'm done. And then Bruno's like, yeah, no worries. I got the next one. And he puts the 4x4 down on the cart that we're using to like stabilize it. And no joke, cuts it maybe in 2 seconds. Like just reams through it, right? This took him no time in comparison to Steve, who's like out of breath and sweating. And this kid just did it like so fast. And Steve was just there trying to like act like he can trade off with this kid like it's no big deal. And this kid's just like, let me do it. So.
Oh my God. Yeah, Steve, you just got to lean into the oldness at this point. You know, there's just no other way to do it. You guys have been moving gravel. Every time you text me, you're like, day 14, hauling gravel. And I'm just like, oh my God, you guys are doing so much, which it looks amazing, by the way. The end result is absolutely incredible in your yard, and I look forward to sitting in it. I'm also very, very happy that I had nothing to do with the project. So, yeah, but shout out to Bruno. He showed your ass what's what, didn't he?
I picked up the thing and I was like, I'm gonna do this 6x6, so you don't have to. And I just start reaming on the 6x6. I'm like 30 seconds in, I'm blown up. I'm out of breath. My arm is killing me. I'm having to do like a full body movement with the saw because my arm
He's trying to
is
two-hand
dead.
it.
I'm trying to two-hand it. It's not working. And Bruno's like, here, let me take it from here. He just takes it, and it's like a hot knife through butter. Like, it's unbelievable.
Well, and Steve, like you're not even in bad shape. You know what I mean? You ride your bike a lot. You know, you're moving, you're doing tons of yard work all the time. So you're not in bad shape for being 45. But there's no comparison to being 21 and being 45 when it comes to physical, just making it happen.
And in my defense, this was 45 after a week of being sick. Like, I was sick
Yeah.
all week. And this is my first time leaving the house in a week where I was like, no, I got this, pal.
Yeah, you really messed up, but I love the fact that Zoe got to witness this, and now we've been able to document it for all time. But the project is done. Are you guys done with the yard now?
No.
Oh,
No.
that is sickening. That is
The ta-
sickening.
We don't finish projects, Greg. We get to a decent point and then we let them sit for a long time. It's why when you visit, you still sleep in an unpainted Murphy bed.
I mean, sometimes enough is enough. You know, there's this saying in higher education that C's get degrees. And so
Yeah.
you guys are the C's get degrees of home projects. But
No,
I do have
we're
to
not
say
C. Come on.
B, are you a B? You're B's. I mean, the projects look good. Like you sent me pictures, and I'm like, that project is done. I looked at that yard, and I was like, that is amazing. It's phenomenal work. So good luck bringing it over the finish line, though.
No, we got it. We just got to build this table, and then we're building a barbecue shelter with like a hydraulic door.
Yeah, you really just need to get it done though, because winter is going to be here in 35 days.
This is the
So
next 2 weeks. Next 2 weeks, it'll be
yeah,
done.
it has to happen because I mean it's going to snow. at the end of July. I don't know. It's how it rolls up here in the weird Northeast and the Great Lakes areas. So you guys got to strike while the iron is hot with our, our above freezing month that we have for the year.
We'll make it work.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Zoe. I really appreciate you stopping by to chat about and embarrass Steve, but for his birthday. But this is a delight. So thank you, Zoe, and happy birthday, Steve.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm gonna go back to work.
Enjoy. See ya. All right. So, Steve, what else has been going on? I've been dealing with some tennis elbow, and I'm getting a platelet injection into my elbow next week. So, my cycling this year is going okay, but I am, I'm a little behind where I would like to be. But I'm just wearing straps on my elbow tendons, and I'm just trying to make it happen as much as I can. But what do you got going on?
I mean, I've been riding bikes. We've both been riding bikes, right?
Riding bikes, man. Yeah.
So I did a ride not last Thursday, but the Thursday before was my last ride. So yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm riding my first ride on the bike that you gave me. It was 2 Thursdays ago, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna hit the escarpment rail trail, and I'm gonna hit this other trail. To the I can't remember what the name of the other trail is, but it's on the up on the mountain in Hamilton. I do the rail trail. I get to the other trail. I'm going. This other trail is 20 kilometers in a straight line that just goes from like on the outskirts of the mountain into like full rural out in the middle of nowhere. So I'm going.
Yeah.
I get to the end of the trail. And the trail looks like it continues, but there's a sign that says not maintained past this point. I'm like, it's probably fine. I make a turn, and I'm clearly in a farmer's field at this point. That's just mud, just soft mud.
You just gotta go back.
Yeah, and I went back after a little bit of going a little bit too far, and I got finally turned around, got back. I had to then take some of my water, and I'd use my hands to clean out the bike because there was so much mud caked on in the chain area that the bike wouldn't move forward.
Oh my
so
God.
I had to like clean out the bike, and then I had to use some of my water to clean the mud off my hands because it was caked on. Anyways, so then I decided to like go a bit further, and I biked around Caledonia, which is not close. Like if you look at a map, like Hamilton and Caledonia, like they're two cities like a decent ways apart. So I biked around, then hit the trail, came back. I was towards the end of the trail coming back, and my body was shutting down. Like all I had was an English muffin and peanut butter in the morning before I left.
Yeah,
and
you were bonking.
And then I had one bottle of water in which I finished before I got to Caledonia. So I have no water, and I have no food and nothing at this point. I'm coming back, and I reach a point where I'm like, I can't do this anymore. So I was like, but I can't call Zoe to come pick me up. I just can't do this. So I'm just dying at this point. And the closer I'm looking up, I'm like, where can I get food? I don't have a lock for the bike, so I'm like, I can't just leave it outside.
Sometimes
like,
you gotta.
So I'm like, what do I do? So I'm like, I'm dying. I'm looking. I'm like, okay, if I get off the path at this street, there's an A&W here. I'm like, I just need to make it to the A&W. It's 4 kilometers. I swear to you that this 4 kilometers felt like it took me 3 hours to do that 4 kilometers. I've never felt so run down, sick, and just like I was literally going to be found in a bush. Because
Yeah,
I was
you were
lightheaded. It was awful.
Yeah, you're lucky you made it back. And I'm sure that you had a headwind both ways because that's just how it goes when you're dying like that. You can't just get pushed all the way home. You have to ride back straight into the wind all of the time, no matter what.
So I made it to A&W, and then I wound up making it home. So I did that ride on the Thursday, and that was the morning after I'd played hockey for the second time in 5 years the night before. So did that bike ride less than 12 hours after I played hockey.
Oh my
And
God.
then the day after the bike ride, Zoe and I left to go to Tie Down in Detroit.
Yeah, and that looked like it was a really good time, so that was good. I'm glad it went
So
well.
so we get to Sarnia on the Friday night. We're staying in a hotel in Sarnia, and then we're gonna sleep there and then cross over into Pontiac or
Hmm.
whatever city's on the other side of Sarnia, and then go into Detroit the next morning. It's 3 a.m. We're in bed and sleeping in Sarnia. The the fire alarm goes off at this motel.
Oh my God.
And so everyone has to evacuate. So we leave the hotel at 3 a.m. and we go sit in the car. We have to sit in the car for an hour because the fire alarm's going off for an hour. There's multiple fire trucks. There's people everywhere outside. And this is the night before we have to go to an 11-hour concert the next day.
Oh my God, that sounds horrible.
So yeah, anyways, we wound up going back to bed, barely virtually no sleep at this point.
Yeah.
And now we're driving across the border, which thankfully was a very smooth process.
Hmm. Yeah,
And then
I've had normal experiences at the border recently too, but I totally get why people are avoiding it big time.
and then we did 2 days of Tied Down Detroit. Highlights of that were obviously for me Trial. I saw Trial in 1999. They've been one of my favorite bands. So seeing Trial like one more time was amazing. A band Whispers from Thailand were insane.
Cool.
Highly recommend them. Never Ending Game was really good. The Twitch Fits did a secret set, which was super super fun.
Yeah, they did all Misfits songs. That was the
Yeah.
video you sent me was so good.
Judge was really good. Wrong Side was good. There was Holy Blade was great. Speed was phenomenal. And then Sunday Night Turnstile headlined, which was it was cool to be able to see Turnstile in that setting because
Yeah.
that'll virtually never happen again.
Yeah, yeah. They just announced a show in Buffalo at the Outer Harbor where I saw Primus and Coheed last year. So I think that they have that new record coming out, so I think people are very, very into Turnstile again at the moment. So that's good. It's kind of cool too that they didn't announce that Turnstile was going to be there. So like if you didn't already have tickets, like you were not getting into that show because no additional tickets were sold after Turnstile was announced as a secret headliner.
Yeah, and so it really ensured that the people that were at the show were like hardcore people.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it was
that's
a
really
legitimate
cool.
hardcore show, so it was really cool. And then we drove direct home after Turnstile from the venue. We got home at 3 a.m.
Oh
Monday
man.
morning. And then
Brutal.
I was sick all of last week.
Yeah, yeah. Oh boy. Yeah, I went to see Mastodon and Coheed
How
the
was
other
that?
day. It was good. It was the first time I've seen Mastodon without Brent Hines, so that was interesting.
Did they play
Um
Show Yourself?
they don't pl- I don't know. I'm not a big enough Mastodon fan to know like the names of the songs off the top of my head. I've listened to all of their records, but I don't know the names of the songs.
Okay.
But they were great.
The
I was
drummer sings it.
Yeah, the drummer sang several songs.
Okay.
Brand Daler, he's a great singer, amazing drummer. So that was really cool. And yeah, trying to think of what else I got going on. I don't really know. I got a couple Propagandhi shows coming up in September. Um, let's see. There's not a whole there's all kinds of stuff on the calendar for summer stuff, but it's all family stuff, you know. It's just we're doing all kinds of camps and everything coming up. The kids are almost out of school for the summer, so that's really fun. And we're gonna go up to the Adirondacks and we're gonna do some travels down to see my family in Alabama at the end of July. So we got all kinds of fun stuff coming up. But then I'm excited about the Propagandhi shows in September in Toronto.
Yeah, we actually got to get you up for a Friday night football.
Yeah, yeah, CFL, that'd be cool too. It's just that things are so
Yeah. It's
crazy. But hopefully we can make it happen this year. We talked about it a bunch last year and just never wound up panning out. But hopefully we can do that soon. Um,
so we got the Canadian tour happening in
yep,
September,
yeah.
and uh, I would like to plug something that is taking place on September 13th.
What's that?
Well, on September 13th, we have Greg's book release.
Oh yeah, that. Oh man, should I go get it off the shelf? Have you seen
Yeah,
it?
go get it off your
Hold,
shelf. Let's
hold on
let's
a
look at
second.
it.
Oh boy.
So on September
I'm
13th,
gonna edit this out.
which I believe is a
I
Saturday.
can't even be bothered to edit the show right now.
Oh,
Okay, so
you
here we go. I got the book here.
It's hilarious. It's hilarious that you were like, "I'm going to edit this out." I was setting up the whole segment while you were away talking over top of it.
No, I said I wasn't gonna edit it out. I'm not
Oh,
editing anything. Okay, here's
oh,
the book. Look at how big it is. It's like a thick, ridiculously huge book. I'm so excited that there's two copies that currently exist in the whole world. One's in this living room and one's in the UK, but there's like color photography in here. Like, look at this photo of Chris from like 1996.
that was
Like, that
awesome.
is, isn't that sick? Like, that's a floor show, one of Todd's first shows in Waterloo, Ontario in 1996. Like, there's Todd right there in the back.
That's
Um,
awesome.
really cool. I'm very excited about the project, and I'm just glad it's over. But yeah, on September 13th, I'm going to be standing around in the corner with a folding table at Emissions Records in Toronto the weekend the Propagandhi is in town for the Toronto shows. I will be at both of those shows rocking out. And on September 13th, I think in the afternoon from like 1 to 3, I'm going to be at the record store just kind of hanging around. I'm not going to do a talk or anything. I'm just going to meet anybody that wants to come and say hi. I'll be there. So that'll be fun.
And I'm just going to yell speech like every 5 minutes so Greg has to say something.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm working on getting some copies. I Several people have messaged me and they've been like, "Hey, is the shipping is really expensive?" I'm like, "Yeah, I know. The publishers in the UK, we're working on getting some more affordable options for the US." And it started to like pop up on stuff like Barnes and Noble website, but it's also showing up in like independent bookstores. What's the store in Hamilton that somebody just messaged me about?
Epic Books.
Epic Books. Yeah, somebody like they just went to like their local bookstore and they typed in the ISBN number and it popped up as available for order. And they don't have to prepay. They do pay upon pickup. So that was kind of cool to hear that some options are popping up around the world that don't require shipping that will be, in like 20 Great British pounds or whatever. But it's fun. I had a good time with the project and really it's surreal to hold it it's surreal to hold it.
When Greg was like, "Hey, someone from Hamilton ordered the book," I was like, "Wait a minute, we have someone that listens to the show in Hamilton?" I was like, "I have
One.
no idea."
Yeah, we have one Hamilton listener.
And Greg's like, "Oh, you follow him on Strava?" I was like, "What are you talking about? How is this possible?"
Yeah, yeah, one guy. So hi, hello in Hamilton to our one listener. But yeah, it's been a fun thing, and I hope that a couple people pop over. I'm probably only going to have like 10 or 15 copies of the book with me. So it's going to be very low key and very chill. But then I'm hoping to go up to Winnipeg and do something up there too. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I'm not super good at promotion. I've never tried to like sell this podcast before. Like I've never been like subscribe, rate and review. I don't
Imagine if we did that.
I don't
Imagine.
care about that kind of stuff. I really wish I really wish I did, but I just don't. I can't do it. So if anybody buys the book, cool. If they don't, cool. I'm just happy. It was a project that I just needed to do for myself and for my kid, and to create sort of a physical artifact to document the thousands of hours of my life that I have sunk into this podcast. So that's kind of what I just see it as. It's a tangible artifact that exists in the world to kind of commemorate something that I have spent thousands and thousands of hours of my life doing. And that's the sole reason why I did it. If there are any proceeds that ever come in, I'll do some donations and stuff like that. But I truly don't see it. These things are so expensive to print that I don't ever see I don't foresee a single dollar coming my way ever from this project, which is fine. That's not why I did it. So had a
No,
good time.
you did it as the foremost expert in the ongoing history of Propagandhi.
But Chris, I would say that Chris and George are the foremost
Well,
experts.
that who's not in the band.
Yeah, I mean, like I don't know. This has just been a fun thing for me to do, and I'm just grateful that they weren't horrified that I wanted to do this, and it's coming out into the world, and I don't know what will happen. It's a very weird experience for me, but it's just been a good time.
So tell me
What a great
what you've
sales
been.
pitch.
Yeah, I mean, I can't wait to hold a copy in my hand.
Yeah, yeah. I'll get it to you as soon as I have it. So what you were going to say something else? What were you going to say?
Yeah, I
Move
just
along from this
been.
awkward moment where I'm trying to like not talk about this thing.
What have you been listening to lately?
Oh goodness. Well, this morning I was out on a run and I listened to Only Living Witness and I listened to Unto Others. What else have I been listening to? I checked out that new Wormrot grind album. What else? What have I been listening to? Jeez. I've been listening to a lot of Del Paxton, a lot of Gatto Black, some Buffalo bands. Well, I'll look through my library here. What else? What have you been listening to? I've been listening to a lot of. And I listened to that audiobook of Mood Music by the music journalist. What is her name? I'm trying to figure it out here real quick. Liz Pelly. Mood Machine. It's a book about the history of Spotify. Really interesting. I don't really recommend the audiobook version, but the story is interesting. I've also been listening to A Genocide Foretold by Chris Hedges, and I just listened to How Fascism Works by Jason Stanley. No reason for those particular books, no reason at all. But I've been listening to those as well. But the Mood Machine book about the history of Spotify is pretty interesting.
Oh, that's interesting. I'll have to read that.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I would read it as opposed to listen to it. I don't.
I can't do. I'm not a listener.
Yeah, I don't love the audiobook performance of it, but the story is compelling enough to keep me forcing my way through it, even though I don't love the listening experience of it.
I'll see if the library has it, and I'll take it
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. So that's what I've been listening to.
For me, I was really interested in the. I don't know if you saw any of it, but the Primus Interstellar Drum Derby, like the audition
Watched them.
videos.
Yeah, they're so good.
I love that entire series.
Yeah.
I thought
It
it
was
was
really good.
so well done.
Yeah. I
So
can't believe that they did such an amazing production just for something that they were going to put on YouTube. Like that almost was like should have been like for like a network or something, you know?
yeah, it was phenomenal. So if anyone hasn't watched it, there's I think 12 episodes, and they're all really good. Like
Really
it's
good.
like we're talking like quality band content here. It's awesome.
Yeah,
So
I
I've been
couldn't
I
believe that there was a few of those guys like that they didn't go with. Like I was like Thomas Pigeon or whatever that guy's name is. I was like that guy has the job, no question. And he didn't get it. And I was like, holy cow, that was unbelievable.
I loved the like the kid from I think it was Louisiana or something, the jazz drummer from Louisiana who kept talking about like pooping himself.
Oh yeah, that was a really young guy too. He was
He was
really
like
young,
19 years old, but he was phenomenal.
unbelievable. So that's a totally a good series. Really, really good stuff.
So I've been listening to a lot of Primus.
Nice.
Um, when we were driving home from Detroit after Tied Down, I exclusively listened to Primus that whole drive home. Primus keeps me awake, so
Nice.
I very much enjoyed listening to Primus. So I've been listening to that. I've been listening to a lot of that Whispers band from Thailand that I saw Tied Down. I can't even pump them up enough. They were so good. And then
Cool.
the new Gridiron record came out last week, and they also played Tied Down. So I love me some Gridiron.
Love it. Well, those are some great recommendations. What else you want to chat about today?
So it's the beginning of June, kind of teetering on mid June,
Hmm.
which is summer season. And is there anything better to eat in the summer than fruit?
Oh no, no. The like as a northeasterner, I live for in-season fruit at Wegmans. Like I am obsessed with being able to choose my own produce, and this is like my time to shine. I'm always getting the fresh corn. I'm always getting the in-season strawberries and peaches. Oh, love the peaches in New York. So yes, this is my time to shine for sure.
So I think our gift to the listeners for this summer is going to be we're going to list our top 10 favorite fruits.
Do we have to go in a specific order, or
We're
can
going to
they
go,
be sort of like an interchangeable top 10?
well, mine are pretty hard lined in the top 10. So I was going to go 10. I read you read your 10, I read my 10, you read your 9, I read my 9.
Okay. All right, let's do it. You go first.
Oh, so I go first. Okay. In the number 10 spot, I've got the blackberry.
Okay. Nice. My 10 is kiwi.
That's a great summer fruit.
I love kiwis. I love them. I always have.
Huh.
Yeah.
In my number 9 spot, I've got the watermelon.
In my number 9, I have bananas.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a
That's a
banana consumer.
terrible summer fruit. It's not
No, no, no.
refreshing at all.
No, I don't care. I use the every single morning. I make smoothies for my child, and I make them in a blender. And two bananas go into every single smoothie that she and I make in the morning. So I am full on banana, but I'm actually the liquefied banana consumer. I consume all of my bananas in liquefied form inside smoothies. But without it, it is a terrible smoothie for me. So
So
banana in smoothie is my number 9.
so I can't eat banana because of that banana medicine that when you're a kid or whatever, the penicillin, the banana liquid, because that was so disgusting when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't have it. Like I would literally I was the worst. I would just spit it back out and be like, I'm not having this. So to
All
this
right.
day, I cannot have banana.
You have taste aversion of bananas. I
Oh,
understand. I
it's
understand.
it's brutal.
Anyway, give me your 8.
Uh, my number 8, I am going to go with the field blueberry.
I'm going to go with green grapes. They have to be
That is a
green though.
wonderful, wonderful summer fruit.
And they need to be very firm. They need to be very, very firm. Like I eat whenever I buy grapes at the store, they have to be eaten almost immediately for maximum firmness. Because if they get even the slightest bit smushy, like makes me want to
Done.
barf. Yeah.
My number 7
Hmm.
is a plum,
Ooh, interesting selection. I
but
like that.
has to be firm and slightly tart.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm with you on that. I like not overly ripe fruit across the board. I am a
Yeah.
like my banana has to be like 5 hours past having the last green on the peel. You know what I mean? Like I am
The
the minimal
oh yeah.
ripeness type of person.
The window between it being perfect
Yeah.
and too mushy is
Yeah.
like 5 minutes.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It really is. Like you have to like almost like have like a camera monitoring your fruit section on your shelf or in your fridge to make sure that you are monitoring it for maximum perfection. Because if you miss that window, man, it's really heartbreaking because fruit is not cheap anymore.
No.
This stuff used to be cheap and now it's not. A blueberry can or a strawberry container of Wegmans is a lot of times in the year it's like 5.99 or 6.99 sometimes. It's crazy. Okay, so
My
what number are we on? 7?
7, yeah.
Watermelon.
Oh. Watermelon
Seedless.
is a great, great summer fruit.
Great. Like so good. But like again, it has to be a specific texture. The other day we had a watermelon and I brought it home and I sliced it open immediately and gave a bunch to my kid and she was chowing down on it. I'm chowing down on it, but we only ate half of it. And I stored it and I got it back out 6 hours later, completely ruined. And it was like
Oh.
it went from being perfect to complete mush in just a few hours. And I was like,
Yeah.
this is disgusting because the stupid watermelon cost me like $6. And I got $3 worth of watermelon in my $6 purchase. So I was a little disappointed by that. So anyway, watermelon.
I mean, well, I love it was in my top 10. So, my number 6,
Yeah.
I'm going to go with the green grape. A
Nice.
nice cold grape on a summer day, green
Oh
grape.
yeah. Oh yeah. Nice. Mine is clementine oranges.
Wow, end of season in summer too, eh?
I know for some, like I just like I'm obsessed with them kind of like year round. Yeah. I love that easy peel. I love them. I love them very, very much.
Huh.
So
That's
I'm cheating
that's
a little bit
interesting.
by going at it by doing that. What do
Okay,
we
we're
got
into the
next?
top five.
Hit me. What you got?
My number five, the honeydew melon.
Oh, gross.
So
Oh,
I'm a big honeydew melon guy. I think
thumbs down.
I think in every fruit platter, I'm the guy that eats all of the honeydew melon first because I love
You're
it.
the only one. The reason why you're the perfect attender for the fruit platter party is because no one else is eating honeydew because honeydew sucks.
So
That was a little
I
aggressive.
yeah, I've what's your five?
My five is raspberries.
Raspberries.
Yes,
Wow.
raspberries. Yes,
We, I mean,
raspberries.
that's raspberries are
Raspberries.
unbelievable fruit.
Unbelievable. The tartness is the perfect thing. And I actually planted raspberries in my garden 2 years ago, and this year it is going to be free raspberries for the entire season, full on. They're flowering. I'm gonna have so many. It's gonna be unbelievably cool. So raspberry season is upon me in my own yard. I'm gonna just eat them right off the vine.
Love it.
Yeah. All right. What do we got next?
My number four is also the raspberry.
Raspberries.
And we 2 years ago also planted a raspberry bush, and they are currently flowering. And I'm so excited to get raspberries this year.
Dude, that's awesome. Go us with our raspberry plant. You got to keep them trimmed back though, man, because that thing will take over your whole entire yard if you let it.
We just can't. The squirrels always get the raspberries before we do. So
Ah, man, you need a camera. You got to monitor it, and you got to go out there and you got to punch those squirrels in the face.
I just need like some sort of like scarecrow for squirrels just to put next to my raspberries.
Little thieving freaks. Okay, what number are we on?
You're on your number four.
I'm gonna go with blackberries.
Blackberries. Wow. You
Yeah,
like
I love them.
blackberries more than raspberries.
Blackberries. I love them. I'm obsessed. I love blackberries. They're delicious, and I'm very, very happy with them. So yeah, blackberries, number four.
My number three.
Yeah.
This is a fruit that I ate frequently when I lived in San Diego. I haven't been able to have them as frequently here, but the fruit stand at the corner of where I lived had these for very cheap. The donut peach.
Ooh, interesting.
The
Very nice
donut peach.
selection.
Oh my God. What a fruit the donut peach is. If you can get them in season, local, donut peach. Highly
All
recommend.
right. What number am I on?
Three.
My number three are strawberries.
Strawberries. That's a good
Yeah.
one. Good in
Yeah.
smoothies. Very versatile.
And when you get a really huge strawberry, oh man, they're so big these days. Strawberries get so huge. And I also have strawberries that volunteer planted in the garden from last season. I didn't tear the old ones out of the ground last year, and I go out there the other day, and my strawberries are just almost ready to pick. So I've got a bunch of strawberries that are almost ready to pick
Oh,
in the yard too.
I love that.
Very exciting.
Strawberries, you bake with them, eat them raw, put them in
Yeah.
smoothies. They're
They're
good in so many ways.
They're perfect. And whenever I get strawberries at the store, if they don't get eaten within like 3 or 4 days, I put the whole entire container in the freezer, and that's what I use for my smoothie ice.
Perfect.
Whenever I make smoothies, I don't put ice cubes, man. That is a waste. I put frozen fruit as the ice in the smoothie, and it's always strawberries. So yeah, my are we on number two now?
Yeah, we're on number two.
Go for it. What do you got?
My number two is the cotton candy grape.
Ugh.
No, you
I'm
haven't lived
against.
till you've had a
I'm
cotton candy grape.
Oh, I've had them. I'm against this choice, by the way.
Oh,
I'm just
come on.
stating for the record.
They're delicious.
That's fine. You can just have them. You can have my hat. You can have my portion. I don't want them. Mine is the Honeycrisp apple.
You can the Honeycrisp apple. You went with the Cadillac of the apple.
Dude, I don't know how anyone on this planet who has a choice in doing so eats any other apple besides the Honeycrisp apple. It is by far the best apple. It is the only apple that I am willing to spend money on anymore. Like I don't even go apple picking anymore at the orchard because there aren't Honeycrisp apples there. I just want the Honeycrisp apple all of the time, no matter what.
Oh, the orchard we have here does have Honeycrisp.
Oh, dude, I'm coming. I'm coming over. We're going Honeycrisp picking because that is amazing. But yeah,
Last time,
Honeycrisp apple number 2.
and they don't charge extra for Honeycrisp versus other apples. It's just by the pound, right? So
Why would you go with anything else? Like they're so good. Anyway, that's my choice. Number 2.
the Honeycrisp aren't even in my top 2 favorite apples.
Dude, that is bananas. That makes me that almost is I'm almost offended.
The Asian pear apple is my favorite apple.
Interesting. Okay, well, I'll keep an eye out for that. Maybe I'll buy a single Asian pear apple whenever I go to the grocery store next time. But
Give it a shot.
I'm not gonna commit. I'm not gonna commit yet. Okay, give me your number 1.
My number 1 is the yellow watermelon.
Yeah, you were saying this the other day. What is up with that? I've never had one.
Oh man, you haven't lived.
I
They are
haven't,
just
clearly.
so juicy, so flavorful. The yellow watermelon.
All right. Well, my number 1 is a yellow flesh peach.
A yellow flesh peach.
Yeah, yeah. I
How do
don't
you
like
feel
the
about nectarines?
I like nectarines. Yeah, nectarines are fine. But I really, really, really like those yellow peaches. It's
Huh.
just, I think it just has to do with where I grew up. Yellow peaches were always really, really good in Missouri. And more of a southern place, type of thing. But I really, really love yellow peaches.
Have you had Niagara peaches?
Yes, I have, and they're very good. Yeah, I've had
Niagara peaches are very popular.
yeah, there's peaches over here in New York as well. But man, there's just nothing like those southern peaches. Oh man, oh, so good.
Like a Georgia peach.
Oh, so good, so good. Hopefully, all those things continue to exist in our rapidly changing environmental future. But we'll see. For now, I'm enjoying it. But yeah, that's my number 1. Woo!
And honestly, I'm a little bit shocked about your list.
Why?
I thought for sure that you would have cantaloupe in there.
Yeah, well, you know what they say. With fruit like these, who the fuck needs cantaloupe?
With friends like these, who the fuck is Cointelpro?
The last Today's Empires episode, I mean, this has been a meandering experience so far. We haven't even talked about the song yet. Give me your crash course top 5 songs for Today's Empires, Tomorrow's Ashes, the whole thing.
Okay, number 5, fuck the border.
Mm-hmm.
Number 4, ego sum papa.
Mm-hmm.
Number 3, back to the Motor League. Number 2, today's Empires, tomorrow's Ashes. Number 1, Purina Hall of Fame.
Very good list. My number 5 is Bullshit Politicians. My number 4 is Albright Monument Baghdad. My number 3 is Purina Hall of Fame. My number 2 is Matika Marisa Kun Rasikan. And my number 1 is Today's Empires, Tomorrow's Ashes, the song. What a record, man. What an unbelievable record. I am so happy to finally be doing this episode. I know that people have been like, why don't you ever talk about Cointelpro? And I'm like, oh my God, because researching FBI secret spying programs is a lot of work. And it just took me a long time to muster up the willpower to do this episode. Plus, we didn't have a cover for it for a long time, and now we do.
Plus, we had to wait until we could organically work in the cantaloupe joke to make it work.
With fruit like these, who the fuck needs cantaloupe? It's good shit. So we do have a cover. You just heard it. What did you think about the cover that we're about to hear from Jason Hatcher?
Honestly, I thought it was so fun.
Yeah.
It was completely not what I was expecting,
Mm-hmm.
but I mean, I'm a sucker for a good ukulele cover.
Dude, Jason is awesome. And he also did covers on the Note to Self and Ego Sum Papa episodes. So if people like the cover that they're about to hear, you can go hear more Propagandhi covers by Jason performed with a ukulele on Note to Self and Ego Sum Papa. Jason said about this cover, he said, "What I'm loving as I alter the tone of the song almost entirely is the message still shines through. It's a testament to Chris's lyric writing as seen in Catastrophic Break. It keeps the sentiment of the message accessible, especially for someone like me who can't do sweet licks and super speeds." So really cool to hear a complete stylistic shift for this song in the cover, and so I'm really just grateful that Jason took the time to bust out GarageBand and do this one because it's almost like it's got like a reggae
Oh, it's
ska.
awesome.
Yeah,
It's so
really
fun.
cool, really really cool. So should we hear the cover real quick before we get into talking about the song and hear from our guests?
Yep, let's do the cover now.
All right, this is Jason Hatcher performing with Friends Like These. Who the fuck needs Cointelpro?
Friends like these, who the fuck needs Cointelpro? I'm punch drunk on the sickening cadence of iron fists and velvet gloves to chagrins the crippling Judas kiss, Chris and the sinking ship. The purpose of this new counterintelligence endeavor is to expose, disrupt, misdirect, and destroy, otherwise neutralize any parades that you can jump in front of. Any long years of hard work that ain't yours lies neutralized. Sometimes I wonder if you just can't help yourself. Overhead bloodthirsty vultures circle patiently. They offer condolences and whisper bitter eulogies. His comrades come as thick as thieves. But you got another thing coming. 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 Ooh. Friends like these.
And we're back.
Okay, so thank you so much to Jason for that amazing cover. Really great. We do have a couple of guests, and I've been meaning to make this episode for a long time because I have an interview with a criminal defense attorney from Austin, Texas, named James Clark, who is a longtime fan. James and I recorded this interview so long ago, I cannot even begin to hypothesize when this was recorded. James has never emailed me again asking when his interview will be coming out, but there is so much information in this interview from James. I'm really grateful that he has been patient. He probably forgot we even recorded this, to be honest with you. It's been that long. But the interview is so good because it is the discussion about Cointelpro from an actual criminal defense attorney in Texas who is a Propagandhi fan. So I'm going to go ahead and launch us into my interview that I did with James Clark, the criminal defense attorney in Texas. Please enjoy the conversation.
Who the fuck is Cointelpro? A punch drunk on the sickening cadence of iron fists and velvet gloves. The Cheshire grins, the crippling Judas kiss, the Chris and the sinking ship. The purpose of this new counterintelligence endeavor is to expose, disrupt, misdirect, discredit, or rather lies, neutralize
James Clark. Welcome to Unscripted Moments, a podcast about Propagandhi.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm delighted that you're here. James, why don't you go ahead and just spend a moment and introduce yourself a little bit to the listeners out there so they know a little bit about you.
Yeah, my name is James. I am a criminal defense attorney in Austin, Texas, and I've been a fan of Propagandhi for about 20 years now. And during that time, I've also done a lot of political activism and organizing, specifically around legal defense of activists that are facing, investigation or criminal charges as a result of their political activities, issues around political repression, state repression, infiltration, things of that nature. And so, yeah, really, really excited to be here to talk about Cointelpro and Propagandhi, two of my favorite things to talk about.
Wow, incredible. Your career really fits nicely within the content of what we're going to talk about. So I'm really excited where we're going to go with this. Let's start with some fun stuff first, though, before we get into the wild stuff. Tell me a little bit about your musical journey and finding the band and becoming a fan of them from the best you recall.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually remember it pretty well. Most of my introduction to punk music and just a lot of the music I listened to was from my older brother. I feel like a lot of people have a, older sibling or a friend's older sibling that kind of introduces them to a lot of music. But I remember in 8th grade, through my brother, finding How to Clean Everything, like many people back in the day. And I have a pretty vivid memory of on the bus to middle school in 8th grade, listening to How to Clean Everything on my Discman. And that song, Showdown, the sort of the one that John and Chris kind of split up between each other. There's a part at the beginning where Chris says, "I never have and never will pledge allegiance." And that kind of just blew my mind. It was sort of the most radical and just out there and it's sort of intense and rebellious thing I had ever heard. And so, yeah, I think I don't really remember how it transpired from there. I think that was around the time that Today's Empires came out. And I think, unlike some people, I went from How to Clean Everything to Today's Empires and then ended up going back to Less Talk, More Rock later on. And yeah, I've been a fan ever since. I've really liked how their music has grown and evolved over the years, and it feels like in some ways that it's kind of grown up with me, or that I've grown up with it. That some of the themes and the mood and the elements of it sort of tend to speak to where I'm at in my own evolution as a person. And so, yeah, it's been really exciting. I don't follow music quite as closely as I used to in my younger years, but I do still keep up with what Propagandhi is doing and what they're coming out with, and have always found it pretty exciting.
In the profession that you've chosen, it's a really fascinating world. I've been friends with and I've known some people who do criminal defense work, and they're some of the most committed, justice-oriented people that I've ever known. And in the music world, I kind of see that as Propagandhi as well. So I'm wondering if there was any influence that they had on any sort of career trajectory that you've taken. Would you say that getting into music like this kind of led you down a specific type of career path?
That's a good question. I wouldn't say directly so. It definitely, the music definitely helped develop my politics, my political and social outlook on the world, which then sort of led me to the, events and experiences that led me into criminal defense practice. I do think that, Propagandhi is, definitely one big piece of that. today's empires is it's a punk album that has a bibliography in it. Like there's literally a list of like books and websites and stuff at the end of it that's like, check this out. And the sort of supplemental material that they included on the CD version, it had videos that you could watch. It had this essay by Ward Churchill. It's like a fucking 80-page essay about Cointelpro and the Black Panther program, and like literally half of it is footnotes. So there's definitely like a big piece of political education there. I think the other thing about Propagandhi that's I find interesting and inspiring is sort of their rejection of going about things the way that everybody else is. That they very much sought to carve out their own path, and I think that's a good lesson for all of us in so many aspects of our lives. That sort of rejecting the norms and conventional wisdom of the scene or the movement or the community or whatever it is that we're in, and sort of creatively finding our own path forward. And then, still in the end, like being successful or whatever that means. But, finding that like, not mincing your words, not mincing your politics still like has a lot of resonance with people, and not like, participating in the sort of, what do they call it? The Joy-Cam rock band, sort of commercialization, but still finding that like they have the ability to reach people and speak to people. I think is really cool.
Yeah. What are some of your other influences for your profession that led you, into the legal world? Do you have any other like major turning point moments in your life that kind of led you down that path?
So yeah, I think probably the biggest one that really speaks to conversation we're going to have about Cointelpro pretty soon is that in 2008, myself and a group of other activists from Austin, we traveled to Minneapolis to protest against the Republican National Convention. That was when I think John McCain was getting nominated, and it was kind of the height of the Iraq War and everything after 8 years of the Bush administration, which was pretty radicalizing for a lot of us. But anyway, we traveled to Minneapolis to protest the RNC, and it turns out that one of the people that was traveling with us was a undercover paid FBI informant. And Brandon had been, it turns out had been working with the FBI for a couple of years. But the two people that were in our sort of traveling group that he worked most closely with, two young men named Brad and David, they both ended up getting arrested in Minneapolis by the FBI and charged with making Molotov cocktails. And yeah, there was a big sort of reckoning in Austin after this about, how did Brandon Darby become such a sort of fixture in the radical community there? How did he get to the point where he was, working so closely with two young men who, could potentially be influenced by him and his stature in the community, and turn them over to the FBI. And there are a lot of questions about sort of provocation and entrapment in his involvement, and also a lot of questions about other things that he had done that were like really harmful and damaging and abusive and disruptive in the community that he kind of always kept getting a pass on in a lot of ways. And so questions about like, why do we keep Brandon Darby around until it like becomes unequivocally clear that he's working for the FBI? And so sort of through the course of that investigation and the FBI's sort of harassment of people in our community, I found a both an interest in and a knack for legal work, and decided that I would go to law school. And that was kind of, that was the moment when I was like, yeah, I'll go to law school and this is what I want to do.
Wow, that's an amazing backstory, and like ties very well to the history of the FBI and the ways that they have, informant plants like in organizations and how they're like targeting certain organizations over the years. Do you kind of feel like you're part of like a big picture story there in that moment whenever you think about the legacy of the FBI in general and then see what exactly happened in that story that you just told?
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely, before this Propagandhi album, I had no idea what Cointelpro was. I remember, reading the lyrics and everything. It was this sort of gobbledygook word that didn't mean anything. And I think that's true for a lot of people. I did a kind of informal survey on Instagram to see who had heard of Cointelpro before they heard this song. And I guess I was a little surprised at how many people had heard of Cointelpro, but I'm going to blame that on like them coming into the album later in life or something. But yeah, and so then sort of learning this history and then suddenly finding yourself in a situation where you're like in a van with an FBI informant and your friends are going to prison under some like kind of dubious circumstances, and being like, wow, all these things are still happening. The FBI is still the same sort of political police agency that it's always been. And recognizing that, like, yeah, as the wheels of history turn, a lot of things sort of continue uninterrupted in terms of how the system functions, and being kind of discouraged by that, but also seeing that like there is potential to sort of learn some lessons from all this and maybe find a new path forward together.
Gotcha. Do you remember, so you said that Cointelpro is sort of the introduction of this term to you. That was definitely the same for me as well. I would imagine that it's the same for many Propagandhi fans out there. Do you remember like hearing this song for the first time? Like, did it take you a while to kind of process what was being said, or did you come to understand this song later after a couple of years and then finding yourself going into the legal world?
Yeah, it's never, I mean, for a long time, it wasn't really one of like the standout songs on this album. And I'll admit it's still not like even my top 3 favorite songs on this album.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the interesting thing about it, though, is that like over the years, as I've thought more about political repression and how political movements build resiliency against that repression, I think what it means to me has evolved and sort of taken on new depths. And so, yeah, I think it's an interesting song. I think there's an aspect of it it's kind of just like a diss track in a lot of ways. Like, with friends like these, who needs enemies? But in this case, the enemies is Cointelpro. And it's pretty, in terms of like being a diss track, it's pretty savage. Like, in my mind, I can't imagine like a more scathing and ruthless insult than comparing somebody or their actions to Cointelpro. It's probably like the lowest thing you can be compared to in my mind, and I think a lot of people in the radical world would agree with that.
Yeah, we'll get into the lyrics here in a little bit too, because I want to circle back to what you just said and get a little more of your in-depth interpretations of the lyrics themselves. But let's chat about the program. I'm wondering if you can just lay out sort of a primer on what is Cointelpro for the listeners out there. just give us what you feel like everybody needs to know.
Yeah, so I think there's two kind of important things to. I guess there's two different ways of thinking about Cointelpro that are very much related, but I think it's important to lay out at the beginning that there's Cointelpro that's like the brand name, which was a secret FBI project from 1956 to 1971 that I'll talk about in a bit more detail in a minute. But then there's also sort of Cointelpro, the generic thing, like when we call every tissue a Kleenex or something, that refers to like this larger system of political repression by various law enforcement and security agencies that really depends on a lot of duplicity and subversion and sort of underhanded tactics. And so a lot of times you'll hear people refer to things like what I was talking about with Brandon Darby in 2008. They'll refer to that as Cointelpro. And that's sort of this like the generic form of the word. But Cointelpro, the sort of very specific one, it stands for Counterintelligence Program, and it was a series of FBI projects that began in 1956 targeting the American Communist Party and the Socialist Workers' Party. And the tactics of it, well, so I'll jump ahead in the song a little bit. There's a line that says that the purpose of this new counterintelligence endeavor is to expose, disrupt, misdirect, discredit, or otherwise neutralize these organizations that they're targeting.
Mm-hmm.
And basically every means that you can imagine to disrupt, misdirect, discredit, or otherwise neutralize an organization was implemented. A lot of the sort of preferred tactics were using informants and misinformation and anonymous letters to sort of create and widen conflicts within organizations or between organizations. And then sort of supplementing that with more traditional sort of police actions. So like illegal wiretaps, arresting people over and over again, raiding their homes, all the way up to, the point of direct violence and assassination. And I think that the other sort of, there's a good tie-in here with the title track on this album, Today's Empires, when they talk about the Pine Ridge Reservation, Anime Aquash, Fred Hampton. Were all like prime sites of Cointelpro activity. And so I'll go into kind of a little bit more detail here. So it started in 1956 against, the Communist Party and the Socialist Workers' Party, but it quickly expanded. Like when the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, MLK's organization, formed in 1957, it quickly became a target of Cointelpro and FDI scrutiny. But I think that Cointelpro really hit its zenith, I guess, in the late 1960s against what was sort of termed the Black Power movement. The FBI usually refers to it as like the Black nationalist or Black extremist movement.
Yeah.
But particularly the Black Panther Party. And there's the goals of Cointelpro, according to, the FBI documents, they said they wanted to protect national security, prevent violence, and then maintain the existing social and political order. So it was like explicitly against any political change at all. The order of Jim Crow segregation, white supremacy, the war in Vietnam, like patriarchy, homophobia, all of that was very specifically meant to be protected. And with regard to the Black Liberation Movement, they specifically said that they wanted to prevent the coalition of militant Black nationalist groups, which could become the beginning of a true Black revolution. They wanted to prevent the rise of a messiah who could unify and electrify the militant Black nationalist movement. They wanted to prevent violence on the part of Black nationalist groups, prevent militant Black nationalist groups and leaders from gaining respectability by discrediting them to the community, and prevent the long-range growth of militant Black nationalist organizations, especially among youth. So, really, preventing violence or criminality, whatever that term means, is kind of a small middle piece of this larger thing that we want to prevent the credibility, the growth, the existence of these organizations that challenge the existing social and political order. And let's see here, the story about Fred Hampton, who was the leader of the Black Panther Party in Chicago, I think is sort of instructive about how a lot of these tactics sort of converged to destroy an entire organization in a city. And it's important to sort of, a brief side note about the Black Panther Party and the ways that it was sort of wildly popular and challenging the legitimacy of the state at the time. A lot of their most popular programs were a free breakfast for children program, which later gets co-opted by the state with free lunch at school and free breakfast at school programs.
Yeah.
But the Black Panther Party was doing that first in neighborhoods all over the country.
Yeah, I was amazed by that. I couldn't believe that free lunch programs never existed until the Black Panther Party movement existed itself. They did it first, and then it came to exist after that. That was really wild to me.
Yeah, and it's sort of the two prongs of how the government neutralizes organizations. That one, it relentlessly and violently and just savagely attacks the organization, and then on the other hand, it sort of adopts a little piece of what they were doing to make the organization sort of less relevant and sort of buy legitimacy for the state. But other things they were doing, they were having political education classes, health clinics, clothing drives. And in Chicago in particular, Fred Hampton was working to build a multiracial, quote, rainbow coalition with a variety of both left-wing groups, but also sort of local street gangs. So working with Students for a Democratic Society, a largely white student group, the Young Lords organization, which was a Puerto Rican group, the Young Patriots, which was a group of sort of poor white people, a lot of displaced people from Appalachia, and then some of the local street gangs that had not been super political previously, but were sort of developing a more political analysis in the context of the late 1960s, where everybody's kind of developing a political analysis. And, Fred Hampton, he was a really talented orator and speaker, very good at building networks and connections between people. And the FBI very clearly saw the talent and potential that he was bringing, and just sort of unleashed their entire bag of tricks. And so there's a paid informant named William O'Neill that was in the local Panther chapter from the very beginning. He rose quickly within the chapter, and he became director of security and at one point Fred Hampton's personal bodyguard. But in this position, he was always sort of trying to incite violence and accusing other people of being informants and saying that, like, oh, we need to like torture this person until they confess to being an informant, or we need to like get this person out of the way, and sort of ramping up the like sense of paranoia and tension and suspicion within the group. They also started sending forged letters, anonymous letters, to Fred Hampton, as well as the leader of the Blackstone Rangers, a guy named Jeff Fort. Basically, he's saying things like the Panthers blame you for blocking their thing, and there's supposed to be a hit out for you. And then sending one to Hampton that says, rumor has it somebody's looking to get you out of the way. Jeff Fort is supposed to be interested. And so, like, basically, like, kind of playing the groups against each other and sort of accusing each group of attacking and wanting to assassinate members of the other group. Then there is an instance where there's through some like weird circumstances, the Panthers were distributing ice cream from an ice cream truck to kids in the community, and they arrested Fred Hampton for stealing $71 worth of ice cream, which, granted, $71 back then was a little bit more money, but he got sentenced to 2 to 5 years in prison for it. But then he got out on bond while his appeal was pending. But it's kind of this example of like, just arresting people for every possible offense and like really like throwing the book at them. And then it's sort of, there's things like raiding the local office and things of that nature. But then, the tragic sort of culmination of this was in the end of 1969, when Chicago police and Cook County Sheriff's Office, in collaboration with the FBI, raided Fred Hampton's apartment and shot and killed both him and Mark Clark while they were sleeping. And of course, it comes out that the informant, O'Neill, he had drawn out a map of Fred Hampton's apartment that he gave to the FBI that they used in this raid. And he specifically like shows where people were sleeping in the apartment. So when they're shooting into the apartment from the outside, they know to shoot at Fred Hampton's bed. O'Neill was also the one that had prepared some of the food and drinks the night before and spiked them with barbiturates to make sure that people were, asleep and not responsive when this raid happened. And so this was like kind of a like pivotal moment. A couple days after Hampton and Clark's assassination, the LAPD raided the Los Angeles Black Panther Party building, and there was a shootout there. And so, yeah, it was sort of this moment of like, we're like so under attack, and they're like literally sending death squads to kill us in our sleep. And so, yeah, the extent to which that sort of like decimates a political organization, like it's hard to overstate how brutal and effective that was.
Oh man. Yeah, well, and another detail that I was really shocked by was the fact that Hampton's pregnant partner was in bed with him while he was being shot. Like that was absolutely crazy to me, the fact that they had to have known that she was also in there. And she's given some really amazing interviews in the years since that assassination about what it was like to be in bed with him while he was essentially being shot at. Like, it's got to be just intensely traumatizing for your entire life.
Yeah, I literally cannot even imagine.
Oh my goodness. So what happens with Cointelpro coming to an end? I know there's like tons of testimony that goes into this and things like that, but what is sort of like the ending of this program look like at like a formal public ending sort of way?
Right. So in 1971, a group of activists, they called themselves the Citizens Committee to Investigate the FBI. They literally broke into an FBI office in Media, Pennsylvania, and just stole boxes of documents. And these documents that they then, leaked to the press, show and confirm the existence and the extent of Cointelpro. And it's kind of a big scandal at the time. There was like Senate hearings about it. And once it was exposed, once it was no longer this secret program, the FBI sort of quote unquote formally ends Cointelpro. But the tactics of Cointelpro absolutely did not end. I think the other like really sort of telling story about it and the sort of proof that like it didn't just end in 1971 was the FBI's activities and involvement against the American Indian movement throughout the 1970s, and especially on the Pine Ridge Reservation after the Wounded Knee standoff. And the extent to which they were working with sort of local tribal police and corrupt tribal leaders to harass and intimidate and surveil and disrupt and destroy the American Indian movement there, which is, that effort is what leads to the death of Anna Mae Aquash, who is a American Indian movement participant leader, who was then accused by an FBI informant of being an informant or being in cooperation with the FBI. And sort of, we call it snitch jacketing or bad jacketing, where you like paint somebody who's like an honest and, good person as being an informant or a snitch or whatever the case. And there's still a lot of questions about exactly what happened to Anna Mae and who was responsible for her murder. But I think one of the sort of prevailing theories is that through the process of snitch jacketing her and the really intense paranoia and sort of post-traumatic stress that was going on within the American Indian movement, is that other participants in the American Indian movement were the ones that kidnapped and killed her, believing that she was an FBI informant, which of course that belief was originally created by the FBI.
Okay. So the legacy of Cointelpro is something that really fascinates me to this day, because I know that as recently as 2017, whenever Jeff Sessions was the Attorney General for the United States, there were some issues and hearings about the fact that members of Congress were saying that we are about to revisit some of these moments in our history. And like there was like an attempt to reestablish some programs that were reminiscent of Cointelpro. Do you remember what's going on in 2017 a couple years back? Because I was just reading about this earlier, and it was just really interesting the way that the Sessions Justice Department was looking into maybe using some of these techniques to kind of squelch some of the uprisings with regards to like racial justice. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
I don't remember those specific discussions in 2017. But I mean, the line of sort of political policing and political repression from the FBI is like, it's a continuous and unbroken line from the founding of the FBI. in the like 1920s. And
Gotcha.
the more recent history, there's, especially in the first decade of the 2000s, after 9/11 in particular, there's a lot of these sort of counterterrorism sting operations that look a lot like entrapment, where like a single sort of marginal person of Middle Eastern or South Asian, North African descent, ends up talking to an undercover FBI person on the internet, and they sort of cultivate this person and like draw out all their anger and fear and frustrations, and then it ends up becoming this sort of bomb plot that really looks like the FBI sort of dragged this person down the path until the point they can arrest them for being a terrorist. A lot of surveillance and harassment that was racially, ethnically focused on Muslim, Middle Eastern, North African communities. A situation in LA where the FBI's informant, who is infiltrating a mosque to look for, quote unquote terrorists, the informant ends up getting reported to the FBI by other people at the mosque because he's being so sketchy and trying to incite violence. A lot of situations against, radical environmental animal liberation movements. The case of Eric McDavid is one really good example where, again, they try to, the FBI informant creates this so-called terrorist plot and sort of coerces everybody into continuing to participate in it until the FBI swoops in and arrests everybody. And then, in Eric's case, like after he spent several years in prison on like a 22-year prison sentence, it's revealed that the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office hid all of the correspondence between him and the undercover informant that would substantiate that she was like manipulating his romantic interest and like really sort of dragging him through this and coercing his participation. And so like hiding evidence to ensure convictions and ensure these long sentences. More recently, the Standing Rock demonstrations in 2016, they, in both the Standing Rock demonstrations and the George Floyd uprisings in 2020, they started really using a couple statutes that they have not used in any significant way since the 1960s and 70s. The federal riot statute was passed in 1968, right after MLK's assassination and the uprisings that resulted from that. It was technically part of a civil rights bill that they passed, that a bunch of right-wing segregationist senators sort of added this riot statute as part of this like conspiracy theory that there were these civil rights activists that were traveling around inciting riots, like H. Brown and people like that. And that didn't get used again hardly until the 2020 uprisings, when they're again, using this against racial justice protesters and Black freedom movements. The civil disorder statute also passed in the early 1970s as a reaction to the protests and the movements at the time, and used pretty heavily against the American Indian movement participants after Wounded Knee, and then not used again until Standing Rock in 2016. That they started using that as a means of criminalizing these protest movements. And so, there's a lot of like echoes and ripples and like sort of direct ties between, what the FBI and, the entire law enforcement apparatus in general was doing in the late 60s, early 70s to destroy Black and Indigenous and Puerto Rican liberation movements, and what they're using today to destroy those same movements.
Amazing. And I'm curious about some of your thoughts on some of these the lyrics too. The lyrics are very mysterious to me. That's not a song that's like talking specifically about the murder of like Fred Hampton with very direct language. It takes a lot of interpretation and a lot of research to kind of dig into the term itself and then try to piece together the story of what's going on in the song. And I also, I'm reading the lyrics here, and the line, the Judas kiss, jumps out at me because there's actually a 2021 documentary about the life of Fred Hampton called Judas and the Black Messiah, which came out at Sundance Film Festival, which is kind of fun. But I'm curious about your thoughts on the lyrics and what Chris has written here and, how you piece together the story of what's going on in this song.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't think there's anything that's like, in some ways, I don't think there's anything that's like super complex about what's going on in the lyrics here. And I think, depending on how you read it, there's kind of like sort of a spectrum of possible people that he's talking about. And I think, my first interpretation of it, earlier on in life, I was kind of just thinking about like, talking back at like the general haters, the people that like don't want you to succeed, the people that try to undermine and interfere with your vision and your project and stuff. But I guess I've sort of, as my time in political movements has deepened and I've thought more about it, I think more about how kind of the message of the song references sort of these dynamics that go on in political movements and the different types of people that get involved in these movements and how they develop and interact with each other and oftentimes sabotage each other. And so, he says, with friends like these, who the fuck needs Cointelpro, is very much a sort of twist on the saying, with friends like these, who needs enemies. Mm-hmm. He says, I'm punch drunk on the sickening cadence of iron fists and velvet gloves. There's, an obvious sort of duplicity here of like concealing the iron fist, the brutality behind a sort of velvet glove of legitimacy or friendliness or something like that. The Cheshire Grins, I think is, a reference to like the Cheshire Cat and the Alice in Wonderland, sort of a sort of mischievous and duplicitous kind of grin. I really like the crippling Judas kiss to christen thee a sinking ship. That like, it's sort of the kiss of death, right? The Judas was, the one that betrayed Jesus to the Romans for execution and crucifixion. In the movie that you mentioned, Judas and the Black Messiah, a very deliberate reference to Cointelpro in the title there, that like Fred Hampton was sort of seen as this Black Messiah, and William O'Neill, who's sort of the other main player in that film, being the informant that, pretends to be your friend, but then like, directly participates in the assassination. And then, Chris just quotes directly from an FBI memo here, which is, kind of amazing in some ways to make a line in an FBI memo like sort of lyrically fit in a punk song. But then there's kind of a weird twist at the end of this line. When he talks about any parades that you can't jump in front of, any long years of hard work that aren't yours, that really feels like it's addressing like Propagandhi as a band,
Mhm.
and efforts of people to sort of undermine like what they're doing politically and musically, or to sort of try to put them into a box or into sort of this commercial music machine. And then he talks again about sort of bloodthirsty vultures circle patiently and offering condolences while whispering bitter eulogies. Again, thinking, there's a couple of songs, throughout their catalog that kind of address this like spirit of like opportunism and like cutthroat competition that pervades our society in a lot of ways. Like, ordinary people do fucked up things is one song where it's like, when you put people in these circumstances and like make sort of competition and success at all costs, and like sort of this dog eat dog, you or me culture, that like, of course, people are going to like start taking advantage of each other and start, backstabbing each other. There's also a line in the song Dark Matters, Unfailed States, where they talk about, the vultures circle close, waiting for you to slip and fall.
Yeah.
And then the sort of the next piece is, they put comrades in scare quotes, like comrades come as thick as thieves. And I think a lot about, people that present themselves as comrades in a political context that are maybe, maybe they even see themselves as comrades, but sort of have an ulterior motive of exercising power over other people. You see it sometimes with like different authoritarian communist groups that want to sort of co-opt a coalition and like be in charge of it, or don't want to be in a coalition that they're not in control of, or want to sabotage people that might otherwise be political allies but don't adhere to the exact same political program or political strategy that they're pursuing. I also think about Brandon Darby, the FBI informant from Austin in 2008. He caught wind of the fact that he was going to be outed as an informant shortly beforehand, and so he wrote this like public letter, basically like getting in front of that and saying like, yes, I'm an informant. But and trying to sort of justify what he had done. And there's this completely surreal part of it at the end where he signs the letter in solidarity, Brandon Darby. After like literally like spending years feeding information about people that he purported to be friends with to the FBI, and sort of directly participating in the arrest and prosecution of two people. And we know that he had worked previously closely with a Palestinian activist in Austin whose house got raided, and then subsequently died by suicide. And so like all these years of like really just like malicious destructive actions against this political movement that then he's still proclaiming solidarity with, and just the like the dissonance and the maliciousness and the treachery involved in that, I think is pretty striking. The second to last line, he says, "But you've got another thing coming."
Yeah.
The internet told me that this is actually a reference to a Judas Priest song
Ha.
by the same name. You got another thing coming.
Yeah.
And I went and listened to that song, and it's kind of got a different different sort of vibe to it. But again, it's sort of this like, excuse me, it's this discussion of people trying to like keep this band from like the success and the like notoriety or whatever that they are pursuing. And then at the end, it's like, you got another thing coming. It's kind of this message of like resilience and pushback against these forces that are, trying to undermine, your honest efforts. And then, they end with the same line that they open on. And so, there's kind of like all these different, in some ways, they're kind of like talking about like similar things in different ways throughout the song, of like all the different like types of ways that you can refer to like a turncoat or a traitor or a saboteur, or an enemy. But one of the things that I've, as I've been talking about like political repression and movement resiliency over the years, one of the things that I tell people is that like a lot of the ways that we build resiliency and fight back against repression, a lot of these things have a lot more to do with how we interact with each other and how we organize and act internally within our organizations and movements. And, sometimes a lot less to do with like how we're interacting with the state and or with the FBI or things like that. And, those things can be important too, but, a lot of it comes down to like, building trust and building, healthy relationships of accountability and consistency and good communication with each other. So that when things start going wrong, when, the pressure is on, when there's suspicion, when there's attack, that we have like strong foundations that aren't just built on like superficial political rhetoric, that have like, really deeper connections between people and organizations to fall back on. And so I think a lot about, the ways that we kind of, sabotage ourselves, inadvertently in political movements, and how to sort of build resiliency against that. And how, I mean, there's a joke sometimes that like, if you want to destroy a leftist organization, don't send an FBI informant, just send them $10,000 and them sort of fight over how to allocate and use these resources. And so, thinking about how we can build, stronger and more like tight-knit and healthy organizing relationships that aren't, susceptible to the infighting about $10,000 or susceptible to the machinations and aims of FBI informants or other bad actors.
Amazing. I've never actually heard that saying before about the $10,000. It's actually really funny. So
it's fun, and it's also like horrible, and like watching organizations fight over like actually having access to resources is like, it's one of the more painful things to watch in a political movement.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, James, what an amazing primer. I've learned so much from you just in this short conversation. There are certain songs, I talk about this once in a while on the show. There are certain songs that I procrastinate a lot because the topic feels beyond me in a lot of ways as just a hobbyist podcaster who makes a show. But finding people like you who have spent many years of your life committing to learning about this kind of stuff and seeing how it relates to your own profession, it really takes the show to the next level. So I'm really grateful to you that you reached out to explain this to me and talk about this show. And your line-by-line discussion of the lyrics, too, is just so powerful for me as a person who is learning about this song to this day. And I'm wondering if you can just conclude a little bit with some thoughts about the band. Tell me a little bit about what this band sort of means to you throughout the course of your life and also today.
Yeah, I think that, they're definitely one of my favorite bands. I like all of their material on one level or another. Some of it I like a whole lot more now than or a whole lot less now than I used to at other points. But it's also, a band that I see is like really like living their own values and like putting that at the center of what they're doing, whether it's their political values or their, musical values and aspirations. It's a band that's not just, saying words in a song, but are like, struggling themselves with like what this means in their life. And in the larger world, it's, all of them are like, involved in different political activities outside of the band, whether it's, trying to run a, cooperative record label, being involved in, supporting refugees and the rights of migrants, supporting, Indigenous First Nations struggles for, autonomy and independence, or, sort of giving people access to like a deeper political education, through music, that, we really don't get through a lot of, normal channels, whether it's, school or the media or, things like that. And then, really always trying to like push the envelope of what they're doing, politically, musically, lyrically, I think is unparalleled, in a lot of respects. And I remember the first time I ever saw Propagandhi live was in 2005, right after Potemkin City Limits came out, and they weren't playing anywhere in Texas, and the closest they were playing was in Tempe, Arizona. And me and my brother and three of our friends, we drove all night across West Texas and New Mexico to get to Arizona to see Propagandhi, because it seemed, they weren't putting out albums very often. They weren't touring very often. We all thought that this was like maybe the last time we'd ever get to see Propagandhi live. And so
For sure.
they up all night driving across the desert to see Propagandhi. And sort of thinking that like that kind of like ridiculous devotion is also in some ways like what they bring to their music as well. The like, we don't release an album very often because we're so intent on like making it the album that we want it to be. And that we don't, tour extensively because we want to like bring our full passion and energy to every show that we play. And yeah, sort of seeing that like reciprocated between the band and, the people that listen to and support the band, I think is really pretty cool. And so, yeah, I just think that they bring a lot to their music and to, the scene and the communities that they interact with. And I think that's really special.
Well, it's special to me too, James, and it's special to me as well that you reached out and participated in this episode for With Friends Like These, Who the Fuck Needs Cointelpro. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure that the listeners out there do as well. So thank you so much for taking an hour out of your day today on Father's Day of all days to jump on here with me and have a chat about this great song. It means a lot.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for having me on here. It's been really great.
Overhead.
All right. Thank you so much to James Clark for that fabulous conversation about Cointelpro and his fandom of the band. Next, we're just going to revisit an episode that we did a couple of years ago with Alicia Cordisco from the bands Project Roenwolfe, Judicator, and Transgressive. Allie and Steve chatted briefly about Cointelpro, and I just wanted to weave that back in there. So if you enjoy this section, please go back and find Allie Cordisco's full episode on the podcast with Steve, where they talked about power metal and Propagandhi songs for about an hour, and it's a really good one. So go back and find that. But here is Allie Cordisco discussing with friends like these who the fuck needs Cointelpro.
You got another thing coming. You got another thing with friends like these. Who the fuck is Cointelpro? With friends like these. Who the fuck is Cointelpro?
Into it, then you walk away for a while, and then you come back, and then you find new things that you appreciate about it. And I think that's the beauty of the band.
Absolutely. They're so re-listenable because they don't really repeat themselves a lot in songs. It's just like, okay, this 2-minute song, but like you're going on a journey. It's not 2 verses, 2 choruses done. So there's a lot of re-listenability.
Let's do a dive into our first song. Our first song we're going to talk about with friends like these, who the fuck needs Cointelpro? So tell me a bit about your time and place feeling Today's Empires album as a whole before we talk about the specific song.
So Today's Empires is the one album that I was really familiar with before I deep dove Propagandhi. And that is the one album I had for a couple of years before really getting into them. The one album I would listen to where I was like, yeah, this is a great album. I love this album, but I'm not going to listen to the band any further. So it's really my starting point and my context for the band. And it's still probably my favorite record by them. That might just be, exposure bias, but I just think it's their classic record and their like seminal important album, if that makes sense.
I mean, I love the album too. The album actually has my favorite Propagandhi song on it. So
which one's that?
I mean, I talk about it on literally every episode. My favorite song is Purina Hall of Fame.
Nice.
I mean,
it's an excellent one.
To me, it's like I want to end every album I listen to with that song because it's that good. Yeah. Anyways, so when we're talking about the song Cointelpro, anything sticking out to you in this song, like musically?
Yeah, so my favorite part of this song is the outright Judas Priest homage. That stuck out to me the first time I heard it, where like they go into the "You've Got Another Thing Coming," and it's just like a speed picked version of the Judas Priest riff almost, and like the vocal line is almost exactly the same. I just thought that was so. It just felt like a musical shout out moment because I don't think it's topical to the song at all. I mean, certainly the words fit in the lyrics, but the Judas Priest reference, I don't think there's anything really politically relevant there. But I'm a huge Judas Priest fan, so
it's a nice Easter egg for everyone listening, basically.
Yeah, and it's funny because I'm doing the Judas Priest cast next weekend.
Oh, nice. Yeah, it's a fun song. I remember the first time I heard this song, I was like, "This is a good song."
Yeah. Yeah, it's very bouncy, very fun. It's a serious topic, of course, but I love the kind of, I guess there's a little bit of just throwing the seriousness of it to the wind and being really fun in its execution.
Anything else sticking out about the guitar riffing in this song?
I just love any time that they do a straightforward, fast, almost like speed metal influenced song. That's really my shit when it comes to other music. So just hearing that in a punk context always makes me happy. Anytime there's like muted speed picking like there is in this song, I'm always happy.
Yeah, no, it's great. So diving into the lyrics here, anything sticking out about the lyrics?
Yeah, I love that this song kind of takes what would normally be a political topic, Cointelpro, and layers that into a personal experience. And this one is very important to me, especially because a lot of people don't know what the fuck Cointelpro is. And Cointelpro was absolutely instrumental in basically dismantling leftist and especially Black Power movements in the United States. And it's completely declassified is the crazy thing. Like, you can go read about it on Wikipedia. Like, their job was to disrupt leftist organization and to outright stop Black Power movements. And that's just insane that's just like public knowledge. And no one really seems to connect the dots on how that affects us today. I mean, we're still experiencing the consequences.
Oh,
it's all
just,
about.
yeah,
Oh,
everyone's just like, oh, we're cool with it.
Yeah, if they even know about it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like hiding in plain sight. And obviously people into more leftist theory and history know it, but I just mean your general, well-meaning leftist or even liberal person. And the song is so interesting to me as a trans person in 2023 because, like the title says, with friends like these, who the fuck needs Cointelpro? And it's all about how basically his friends who were alleged leftists, either due to like infighting or getting jaded or selling out or like basically just giving into the system, abandoned the cause, abandoned their friends, and ultimately harmed the things that they cared about. And that was the objective of Cointelpro, was to disrupt people and encourage infighting that would basically deorganize people or discredit leaders. And that happens on the communal level and the friendship level too. And that's so fucking relevant if you've read any thread on Twitter.
Yeah.
Like, they don't even need Cointelpro these days because, while the fascists are running room clearing drills and shooting beer cans pretending there are heads, we're arguing about whether it's transmedicalist to put your HRT date in your bio on Twitter. And, I'm not discrediting the importance of intercommunal behavior, but I'm sorry, I just don't care about small issues like that and like trying to rip each other apart over small petty things ultimately when the fucking boot is on our neck. And that's really what movements like Cointelpro set out to achieve. So when I look around, it's like, yeah, no, Propagandhi, I agree with friends like this. They don't even need to work when we're going to sit here and pick each other apart for minor language while, they continue to pass laws in 15 states now that's taking away our medical care and furthering their objective to make it illegal to even be in public.
It's horrific. Like it's one of those things we have a big picture problem, but everyone's spending their time focusing on small picture solutions.
Yeah.
When
those things are important, but like if you get lost in them, then you've lost the big picture, and then we don't even need to fight to lose. We've already lost.
Yeah, it's sad. But okay, going back to the song here. I don't know if this is the part I appreciate in the lyrics here is when he says miscredit, discredit, or other, the pause in between other and wise is awesome.
Yeah, I think that's like a beautiful one, just play on words there, but how he physically executed it in the vocals to sell it, I think is awesome. And that's something he does quite a lot. It feels like that's kind of one of his signature tools. Yeah, he accomplishes a lot in a little bit of time. And I love that the lyrics specify comrades in quotation marks to mock it. And like, you can hear the sass in his voice when he sings that part.
Oh, when he wants to, he's got so much sass in his voice.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it adds to the experience of listening to the songs. Absolutely. Because they're so self-reflective and it's almost like inner monologue, right? So the sass is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe this is just me not thinking about the song enough before, but maybe the Judas Priest reference, he mentions Judas kiss in it earlier. Maybe it's just like leaning into the concept of betrayal, which is really the crux of the song.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah. That it's overall, where would you rank that song on the album?
Honestly,
top tier, middle tier, or bottom tier?
I put it in top tier. I don't think it's my favorite song on the album because I really, really love Fuck the Border. That's probably my favorite song. But I didn't want to go into that one because I think you guys had covered it fairly recently. And I would still put it top tier, but not my favorite song.
Okay, so this is Paul Hodgert here, helping out Greg and Steve. I'm here talking to Curran Ferris. He's also known as Greenhouse, and he is a member of the group Seracs, former member of Propagandhi opening band Warsaw, and also former member of junior high band with me in the 90s. And he's here to talk about his time with his experiences with Propagandhi, as well as specifically the song With Friends Like These, Who the Fuck Needs Cointelpro? Curran.
Hello.
Great to see you, man.
Good to see you too, Paul.
It's great to pretend that we didn't just talk for 15 minutes to each other as if this is the very beginning of a brand new conversation. Real great to start this conversation 100% for the first time.
I could feel the same way. Yeah, agreed.
Awesome. So I'm just going to start with the main question. What's your sort of journey with Propagandhi? Do you remember when you first came across them, or what your sort of first time hearing them was, or anything like that?
I do. I mean, I think that like a lot of folks around the world, certainly in Winnipeg, like coming up, being interested in like skateboarding and like, the punk rock, I think that we kind of feel like we've always been aware of them. They've always kind of been in our lives in a lot of ways. I feel like, it was grade 7, I changed schools. I went to Gordon Bell High School, which kind of, it was a much more diverse school, a much more diverse community. And there was kind of kids that came to this particular program from different corners of the city. And it was definitely a friend there who was just like, you should check this out if you're into, whatever I was into at the time, like Dead Kennedys and Misfits and things like that. And they're from Winnipeg. So I was like, holy shit, like this band is from here. I feel like it was maybe a taped copy of How to Clean Everything. But then I very quickly secured a copy of Less Talk, More Rock on tape, which I still have.
Nice.
And so it was like, I mean, it was a big deal, I think, too, and in anticipating a question like this. I think there was a lot of other things going on. Like, we're kind of in the era when like anti-racist action would come to, like, I remember them clearly, volunteers clearly coming to the school to like talk to students, about like neo-Nazis and, how they were recruiting outside high schools and shows. And that felt really like it was something that I was concerned about. It was, I was interested in, in attending some of those ARA meetings, certainly like the stickers and buttons and that whole sort of like world, I think. And Propagandhi was really was kind of like a soundtrack to that at the time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then connecting through them, you get into all the stuff from AK Press and all that stuff, just sort of built out that worldview.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. And I think, something that I've to this day, their ability to communicate, to sort of be a moral compass, in terms of social justice and politics, I can't think of another band that's had a bigger influence on not only just like music and punk rock and DIY and all those things, but really just in terms of like really influencing how how I like started to think or like to sort of understand the world. And again too, like even just like looking at their records, and in the days, like pre-internet or whatever, early internet, just like here's a like comprehensive list of books that you should go and check out, and I remember doing that and going to the library and being, trying to find them, or then, discovering Mondragon and going like, oh, all these books are here.
Here's where I can get all the Howard Zinn and Chomsky that they're telling me to read.
Yeah, and it's perhaps beyond the scope of this conversation, but I mean, I spent 10, 11 years working for a progressive press that like, again, that, I think Propagandhi was really sort of an entry point and really sort of like a North Star in terms of, sort of like political awakening, and just kind of understanding the power of, or rather the way that the world works, but also like that there's different ways to reach people and communicate, to get people engaged in important ideas.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like that's basically my experience, because like we have pretty similar upbringings, middle class. Like we grew up a lot of our time we lived in the same neighborhood. Although it's weird because I think we rode the bus together to elementary, and then didn't see each other until you went to junior high with somebody who went to my elementary. So it's just a weird way that our lives are sort of connected in ways, and we both played in the same Pee-wee Hockey League.
It's a very classic Winnipeg.
The one season I played. Yeah, we're all connected in some weird way.
Yeah, but we didn't figure it out until a little bit later. We're like, oh, right, we've actually kind of known each other for like a previous decade.
Yeah, probably since we were about kindergarten or grade 1 age. It's the weirdest thing about this city. I had a similar thing with Sam from Witch Police Radio.
Oh, yeah.
Who I've now been talking to a bit through the Propagandhi podcast. And like, oh no, we have been at probably 40 of the same shows. We know all of the same people, and somehow we have never spoken until a podcast.
Yeah, Sam went to
us is officially a part of.
Yeah,
connected us somehow.
Yeah, he went to the same high school as I did, but again, only talked to him and got to know him when he asked me to be on Witch Police. So
yeah,
classic.
He was at Calvin when my sister was there, and he was only one grade below her. Yet still, absolutely no way to connect with, nothing connected at any point, which is crazy.
Yeah,
I did definitely see Grandpa's Army play a few times.
Somehow, I may have missed them, but I don't know how I did it, but I somehow
almost an accomplishment at this point.
Yeah.
Okay, so you get into Let's Talk More Rock, and sort of, for lack of a better term, radicalizes you like it does to all of us, makes us think about things. We get the Quantity compilation, which I have a real soft spot for because I love the stuff at the Albert and the I'd Rather Be Flag Burning tracks. Like, I really enjoy that stuff.
Yeah.
Then we get Today's Empires, which John leaves the band and they are completely, it almost feels like a completely different band. How did you react when you first heard Today's Empire?
It's such a good question, and I should know this. It's embarrassing, and I'm looking at my G7 pressing. When did this come out?
2001.
2001. So, like, by 2001, I was very like really into like heavier music. There was still some punk that I enjoyed, but I was really like into like hardcore and like metal and like Hydra Head records in that era.
Yeah, I think you and I went to a couple hardcore shows together. Right.
Totally.
That.
Yeah. But, and again, the same, this came out and it was just like, well, of course I'm buying this. Like, of course it's amazing. And it's such a, I mean, it's an incredible record. It's an incredible record in their catalog. I mean, just the progression, and really like, I love bands, some of my favorite bands do this, where there's a bit when you look back, you're like, oh, there are some breadcrumb trails listening to I was just analytically how did they get there? Where did that record come from? But it really is an incredible record. So I remember it blew me away. And even just the, tracks like Fuck the Border being like, wait a minute, I don't remember this isn't how I remember Propagandhi sounding, but this is resonating with, the sort of
well, they grew, you grew along with them in the same, you were growing with them. Your taste was changing the way they were changing, which is,
that's a great way to put it, for sure.
You don't usually get that with a band. You don't luck out that what you're into is what they move towards.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, again, I could go on and on about the record. It's great. Yeah. I mean, I feel like I went to the release show. I went to a show, and I was right around this time at the West End. But I can't remember enough of who opened to try to zero in on which show it was. I know that my dad had to take me, and I was mortified because he knew everybody there. They're like, oh, Mr. Ferris, and he's like, this is my son that I brought to the show.
My spouse Ashley was taught by your dad in Oakbank, because of course they were, right?
Because of course, yeah.
Because again, Winnipeg, or I guess Manitoba. It's just how it is.
Yeah.
See, I'm weird. I didn't like Today's Empires when it first came out. For two reasons. One, I thought the guitars and production sounded weird, which clearly it did, because now they're remixed.
They remastered it.
Unbelievable. Yeah. Not only remastered, they remixed it. They reamped.
That's right.
Guitars, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
And I was so Fat Records pilled that I wanted another Less Talk More Rock. I wanted it to sound exactly the same, and it did not. I didn't like it. Now, it's since become probably my second favorite of their records. So clearly I was on that same trajectory that you were, but I was just coming at it at a different time. But now it's, to me, it's probably my second favorite. I will always have a soft spot for Less Talk because it was the first one I heard. Sure. And it was just having the couple little interjections of John Samson in there too. Really, I love the way that flowed. But again, now with Todd, getting all those I Spy vibes, I had no idea that I Spy were so great until I started digging through, until I got a copy of Quantity's Job 1, and now I love I Spy as well. So leading up to that record coming out, had you ever heard of Cointelpro?
No.
Neither had I. Not.
Yeah. and I mean, I think that's something else. It is something else that, we mentioned, we touched on previously, just the I'm looking as we're talking, I'm just again flipping through the book, nice. And it that was kind of how I again with Less Talk, although it was on cassette, so it was super small, but there was so many things that I had never even heard of before, or ways of thinking about something, from a perspective or a point of view that I hadn't considered. Yeah.
Well, yeah, again, we grew up a couple of middle-class white guys in Winnipeg, where these aren't things that are going to be coming to us unless we're seeking them out.
For sure. Yeah.
Which is why I'm glad we eventually all did. Not all.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, so the kind of music you're playing these days is ambient drone style, sort of in that sort of milieu. Would that be?
Yeah.
I have a handful of your tapes. Really enjoy them.
Thank you. That is correct. That is accurate. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Now, would you say, and I know that's probably not the only stuff you play, would you say though that Propagandhi's music and Chris's playing has had much of an influence on sort of the way you play and the sort of stuff you play? Because I know that Warsaw definitely was a heavier band than what you're doing now, because I wouldn't call what you're doing now heavy in a traditional sense, although it can feel very heavy in other ways.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of riffs, maybe a note or two that occurs. It's mostly just texture and atmosphere. I mean, Chris's playing is it's influence. I mean, I'm a huge fan, a huge admirer of his, certainly his singing and lyrics, his work as a lyricist. His playing is out of control.
Especially for a guy who doesn't know any theory.
No, I mean it's out of control.
Boggles.
Yeah, I mean, is it influential? Especially when I was, perhaps at the height of whatever powers I would have had playing guitar. Absolutely, but I was also never a shredder. Yeah, I spent some time, gave it a go, gave it a try, and it just wasn't my thing. But his just the chord voicings that he uses, were in harmony, his ear for harmony and melody, for sure. I mean, yeah, so yes, a huge influence, but perhaps not in a shredder kind of way. Yeah,
But I'm the same way, just like the way that he can move through chords with different voicings. And like, I think of a song like, again, to go back to Let's Talk, a song like Resisting Tyrannical Governments, where like he's playing an A, but he is playing the most interestingly voiced A up at like the 12th fret with all of these sort of added notes. I don't exactly remember which version of A it is, but it's a weird A. Like,
yeah,
choices that I never would have thought to make until after I heard something like that when I'm writing, when I was also a teen writing fast, cheesy skate punk and
sure,
never any of that stuff. And then to have that sort of move into like the heavier stuff that they're doing now. So I presume that you have heard the new record.
I have, yeah.
You have thoughts?
Honestly, I mean, I've listened to it twice through, which is only because it's just been a busy couple of weeks.
Sure.
Yeah. I really like it. Like it's catchy. Like it's the lyrics are, the lyrics are amazing, and I think like all good lyrics, they, you kind of have to sit with them and go, you're not quite getting hit over the head with what Chris is saying or what Todd is saying right away, which I really appreciate. There's a lot of artistry there. And it's just, it's a bit different too. Like to hear, a track like Stargazing. It's so good. It's so, just to hear a band like Propagandhi again, kind of like, take a little bit of a turn from what I would expect to hear on a new Propagandhi record. Yeah, I love it. It's good. What do you think?
I also love it. I found that a lot of people's expectations were after, like, if you know them, you know that they wrote this record during the Biden administration, so it wasn't going to be a Trump reaction record, and they wrote Victory Lap during the Obama administration, so it also was never going to be a Trump reaction record, which is what a lot of people were expecting. Actually, the description of it on Apple Music is really funny.
I haven't read that.
Oh, it's pretty funny because of how inaccurate it is. The Canadian punk icons confront fascism with clear-eyed rage. That is not what they are doing on this record. It's a sad record. Like, I think they've had angry records. They've had some silly stuff. They've had a lot of hope, and there's definitely still hope on this. But this is a sad record, and it's kind of where I'm feeling a lot these days. So it's like a perfectly timed record to sort of hit me where I'm at in terms of like feeling really bummed out about how all of these things that we've all been watching bubbling in the background, and they come to the forefront, and people aren't fighting back against it the way that we would have hoped. And so I really enjoy it. I enjoy a lot of the weirder stuff. I love the opening riff on Guiding Light. And I like that Todd basically wrote a little pop song with No Longer Young. It's a heavy pop song, but it's got choruses and pre-choruses that repeat, which is not something they do.
Yeah, and his voice sounds great. Like, I know he had a lot of like serious issues with his voice, but I mean, his singing is like, he sounds terrific. He
Yeah,
sounds great.
I talked to him
Yeah.
about that on an earlier episode of the podcast. When I did an episode where I interviewed him about I Spy, and just because I was curious, I was talking to him about that, and he had to completely change the way he sings.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think it sounds incredible as well. Like,
Yep.
I didn't know that he had such a sort of richness and nuance to his voice, because he was the dude screaming "fuck the border" and
Mhm.
Super Bowl patriot, which I still love, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's a weird record. I was very surprised, and I'm also surprised I like it,
Mm-hmm.
because
Sure.
somebody who projected today's empires at first, and it always takes me a while to get into new Propagandhi records because they are always so different. I buy every one like on release day,
Yeah, yeah.
but every time it takes me at least a couple months to get into it. This one grabbed me strangely fast.
Yeah. No, that's I think that it, like we've been talking about, like the sort of I don't know what, I've lost my point already, but when a record, a record just, you come across it when you do, and sometimes you're at that exact moment where it's exactly what you needed. Sometimes you're like, okay, and and maybe it's months or years down the road where you're like, oh, okay, now I get it, or like, oh, okay, now this is really like hitting me because of where I'm at now, or I wasn't ready for it then, or whatever.
Yeah, and this one, yeah, for me, it's hitting me right where I'm at, right with what I want. Weird, sludgy, slow, sad, angry, but still kind of hopeful.
Yeah, it's very like,
It's nuanced.
it's very nuanced, and yeah, the sadness, the sort of like the despair, with this moment and this timeline that we're on. Like there's something very, very human about that again, it's always there, but I think it's really like feels very at the forefront or distilled on this record.
Yeah, it also feels like one of the most personal records they've ever done. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's more about how how all of them are feeling and seeing things, as opposed to here's this issue that has come across, here's my connection to it, and here's these problems. It's more personal, which is unexpected and delightful. Although when you look back, there's been more and more of that over time with the band. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there's like none of that on the first 3 or 4 records, and then by the time you get to supporting cast and failed states, you're getting stuff like Without Love and stuff like that.
Sure. Yeah.
Amazing song that hits me right in my feels, to use
Yeah. Definitely.
from 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right, so is there anything else you wanted to talk about either Cointelpro, the record, or the new record, or the band in general, and sort of like their place in your life?
I mean, look, I could talk about this band for a long time, which,
Could I?
yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, I just love the band. When we got asked to open for them, it was a big deal. It was a really big deal. Like, we all had various, like in Warsaw, I mean, all of us had, knew them in one capacity or another. But I still remember, like, we were just finished a jam, a rehearsal, and we're taking the freight elevator down, and Ethan, our bass player, we were like mid convo. He was like, "Whoa, we just got asked to open for Propaganda." Like, it was a big deal. And it was just so much fun. It was so much fun. It was a total dream. It's
Played a good
not
set. I was at that show and I enjoyed your
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, I don't remember specifics of our set. I mean, I remember being there and playing it. I don't remember how it went. But it was, getting to open up for your heroes, for a band that's been that important to me, as in, I guess I won't say, that's been that important to me. It was a big deal. I remember, like a week before the show, listening to, was driving somewhere and had one of their records on, and was just kind of like, holy shit, like, this is really cool. This is a really big deal for me to get to do. Yeah, it was a blast. It was a blast.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'm jealous that you got to do that. And I remember walking in and seeing you up there and be like, holy shit, that's Curran. I didn't even realize that you were playing that show because I got a last minute ticket.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Huh, what do you know?
Yeah. What do you know?
So I think maybe we can wrap it up here. I think we've been going for long enough for one segment on what'll probably be a 3-hour episode because they all are like that. But I want to tell everybody, check out Greenhouse if you like ambient drone stuff. It is fantastic. Check out Serax. And if you can get a hold of one of us personally, we'll tell you about the terrible band we were in together in junior high. But
challenge accepted. Yeah, exactly.
But you have to come find one of us in person.
You do. Yeah. Then we'll tell you everything you could possibly want to know.
Which is very little. It was a very short-lived project.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Curran, for joining me. And it's great to talk to you again. It's been too long.
Thank you so much. And yeah, this was super fun. And yeah, great to chat with you too.
Take it easy, man.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right. So once again, thank you to James Clark. Thanks to Alicia Cordisco, and thanks to Jason Hatcher for their contributions to this episode. Steve, we actually have to talk about the song now.
Only an hour in.
I don't know way more than that with those interviews.
Oh yeah, with the interviews.
Like that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, we've been recording this forever and we haven't talked about the song at all. So, Steve, do you want to talk about the music briefly before we go into the story of Cointelpro itself?
Yeah. Okay. So, I think Todd's playing in this song is awesome.
Yeah,
I
Jord
think
too.
And Jord. Todd and Jord are really shine. I think the bass tone and the aggressiveness in Todd's bass, I love it in this song.
Yeah, and Jord has so much like tom work on this tune, where it's like I love those parts where Jord is doing like all those fills and stuff. This is a really special performance by Jord on drums, and I really appreciate this song. And I also love that this is a song that the band still tends to play quite a lot live. Like when I saw them in 2021, they played Cointelpro, and I was glad that this is a song that still is in there, because this one and like Natural Disasters from Today's Empires, they tend to really like these two songs, and I think it's because of the lack of absolutely bananas breakneck speeds and tempos in these songs. But this is still a really, really heavy song for the band. So I think that this song still stylistically fits in quite well with what they're doing these days with the sort of mid-tempo heaviness. So this is kind of a cool preview for the slowing down but the increasing heaviness of the band that would come in later years.
And especially, with at like the 2-minute mark, how the song kind of turns into that instrumental part, in which if you cut only that instrumental part out of the song and you place it at peace, I think that instrumental part is like a really, indicative sign of where they went in the future, because I think it really holds up with the kind of stuff they're doing now.
It does. And it also would fit in. It's sort of a preview of what they would do with Potemkin on the next record as well. Like with stuff like Cut Into the Earth, Life at Disconnect, Fixed Frequencies. That slower instrumental part is a nice little preview for the experimentation that would come in later years. And I love finding like little moments like that spread throughout their catalog that were like almost like little snippets of what the band was thinking with regards to their own songwriting that would come in later years. Love that kind of stuff. And the outro that you mentioned after the 2-minute mark, it sounds really good after the 2021 remix and remaster by Jason Livermore. It's very improved, if you ask me. Cointelpro is one of the songs that benefited the most from the remix and remaster, and I think Todd and I talked about that on one of his episodes that he and I did, where he said that Cointelpro is one of the ones that were improved the most in his view with the remix remaster. So Cointelpro, hugely improved version, came in that 2021 reissue.
And everyone can read about that in
Read about the in the book.
I'm setting you up with a plug, man. You got to take it.
Man, I'm so bad at it. I'm so bad at it. It's like, ooh, I'm like it's like revolting to me to like promote this thing. Okay, so let's talk about Cointelpro. So for anybody who doesn't know, Cointelpro, which is short for the Counterintelligence Program, was a series of covert and often illegal projects conducted by the U.S. Federal Bureau of Investigation between 1956 and 1971. And its aim was to surveil, infiltrate, disrupt, and discredit domestic political organizations deemed a potential threat to national security or the existing social order.
Existing social order.
Yeah,
That's my favorite term there.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So some COINTELPRO goals were to prevent the growth of dangerous groups and the propagation of quote unquote dangerous ideas. They were trying to disrupt and neutralize perceived threats such as the Communist Party, Socialist Workers' Party, the KKK, various groups associated with civil rights like the Black Panthers and the anti-war movement. And the goal was to expose, disrupt, misdirect, discredit, and otherwise neutralize these groups and their leaders, and to prevent unity and growth among these groups, particularly among young people. Their tactics were infiltration. Agents and informers would join the targeted groups to gather information and sow discord within the group. They would use psychological warfare, like planting false media stories or publishing bogus leaflets, forging correspondence. They abused the legal system using perjury, witness harassment, false arrest. They would illegally force, through conspiring with local police, to carry out illegal break-ins, vandalism, stage assaults, etc. And they would try to undermine public opinion through discrediting organizations and individuals in the eyes of the public. And the targets were initially the Communist Party, but they expanded to include leaders like Martin Luther King Jr., Black nationalist groups like the Black Panther Party, the American Indian Movement, feminist groups, and various anti-war groups. And so in 1971, the group was exposed. The program was exposed after a group called the Citizens Commission to Investigate the FBI stole confidential documents from an FBI office in a town called Media, Pennsylvania, which is a suburb of Philadelphia. Teeny tiny little enclave. You can look at it on the map. It's so little.
Watched that movie last night, by the way.
Dude, so good. The movie that Steve is referring to is called 1971, and it was released in 2014. The full hour, 20-minute documentary is on YouTube for free, and it is interviews with most of the people who were involved in the break-in of the Media Pennsylvania office, who got away with it.
Phenomenal. Like, what a story. Like, absolute legends.
So crazy, right? Like, we'll get into it. I have so many things to say about that group.
Okay.
I'm so glad that you got to watch it. But the group stole tons of confidential documents, and the public found out about it. The documents were gradually leaked, and it was a huge investigation, and it lasted years. And the burglars got away with it, and the FBI issued a formal apology in the 1970s for its actions against domestic targets. And the apology was actually delivered in my home state of Missouri, in a town called Fulton, Missouri, which is in the middle of the state. There's a college there called Westminster. But Clarence Kelly, the director of the FBI, apologized to the American public for abuses of the investigative powers in the quote-unquote twilight of the J. Edgar Hoover years. And he says, "We are truly sorry. We are responsible for instances which now are subject to criticism," which sounds like we're sorry we got caught. And some of the activities were clearly wrong and quite indefensible. We most certainly must never allow them to repeat it, Kelly said. However, we know that this was but the tip of the iceberg of what would come, especially after 9/11 and the writing and passage of the Patriot Act. So COINTELPRO officially ended in 1971. And yeah, it was quite a story. But tell me about your experience watching the movie.
It was, I mean, the movie was amazing. The way they told the story and went about it was really cool. And even though we knew that it was like they were successful, it was still quite suspenseful watching it. And like the part where they like timed it with the Ali Frazier fight,
Yeah.
and with that guy Keith, who's the locksmith, that was like breaking in, and like that it was just wild. But I want to highlight it was Bonnie, and I can't remember her partner's
Bonnie and John
name.
Raines.
Bonnie and John Raines. What absolute badasses.
Seriously.
The two of them are. Like, they must be the two coolest people ever.
Yeah, John Raines died in 2017, I think, but he was a religious studies professor at Temple University for decades. I mean, really crazy, really, really crazy story. And them talking about making arrangements for custody of their children should they go to prison for life was wild. I mean, they put exposing this program of mass surveillance of the public and by the FBI, and they put the public ahead of, possibly being able to, be with their children forever, and having their adult children now be interviewed at the end of the movie was really powerful as well.
Oh yeah, like this,
having
their
them question
son.
it.
I can't remember what their son's name is. The one that talks in it mostly.
Mhm.
Man, first of all, looks exactly like his dad.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the way he talked about it was like he talked about it with such an immense sense of pride. And when they interviewed the daughter, it's like she kind of had a little bit more reservation in that she was, be like, I can't believe they gambled with our lives like that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is it's fortunate that it wound up working out, but the part that I found interesting was that Bonnie was the one person who never showed up on their suspect list, but she was the most crucial part of the whole thing because she was the one who went in and cased the place.
Yeah, that's really, really amazing. She was like applying for a job and just went into the office and was like just kind of like eyeballing like the locks on the cabinets and what the doors lock situation was. Really amazing movie. I totally recommend people go find that. So I do have some clips that I found from various sources online that I kind of want to sample a little bit for the next little bit in the episode. I'm going to embed the links to each of these full clips on YouTube so listeners can go watch them if they want. But I found the entirety of the Today's Empires, Tomorrow's Ashes CD-ROM bonus videos on YouTube. So the first one we'll play a clip from is from the Today's Empires, Tomorrow's Ashes CD-ROM. And this clip is called To Disrupt, Discredit, and Destroy, the FBI's secret war against the Black Panther Party. So here is a portion of that. And like I said, this comes directly from the Today's Empires, Tomorrow's Ashes CD-ROM.
This is a war against the police. They are being murdered by military terrorists. We want to deal with this national threat. The persons, the groups, the urban guerrilla, the organizations which are mounting this nationwide war on law officers must be discovered and punished before the fabric of this nation is seriously damaged or destroyed.
FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover today asserted that of the black extremist groups, the Black Panthers represent the greatest internal threat to the nation. In his report for fiscal year 1969, Hoover said the Panthers have perpetrated numerous assaults on police and have engaged in violent confrontations throughout the country.
Because of the violent actions of the leadership of the New Left, FBI officials concluded that some additional effort must be made to neutralize and disrupt this revolutionary movement.
The federal government, through 4 administrations, we're running a terrorist program against dissent. Literally a terrorist program, major terrorist program. I mean, it began against the Communist Party back in the 50s. Under Kennedy, it really took off. Maybe the Panthers were the most viciously attacked. At the time, we now know a lot from released documents. At the time, according to the FBI, the Panthers had 800 members. But they were devoting enormous efforts to destroy the party because it was doing things like running free breakfast programs in churches and things like that.
Why were we the enemy? Why was the Black Panther Party the enemy? It still is mind-boggling to me. I'm trying to figure out what kind of brain thinks that those people, these people, my people, were the enemy. I still have a difficult time putting it all together.
And it reached the level of outright political assassination. The literal Gestapo-style political assassination. The person who was, the most extreme case in the Cointelpro records was the assassination of Black Panther leader Fred Hampton, who was an organizer in the Chicago ghettos. They were not going after him because he was a criminal or anything else. He was anything but. He was a very effective organizer. That's the kind of guy they want to kill. In comparison with this, what's Watergate? Watergate was a Tea Party. The only reason why anybody pays attention to Watergate is the targets were rich, powerful people.
To me, it is not surprising, and maybe it's not surprising because of my 9 to 10 years of FBI experience, but the operations, the ability to get informants in the black community and organizations have never stopped from the 60s. And again, as the FBI supervisor said, why would you stop such an effective program? What action?
Okay. Did you want to explain to our younger listeners what a CD-ROM is?
No, I don't. Nope. We also don't have younger listeners. So the second one is a bit from Noam Chomsky discussing the Cointelpro program. And again, a full link to this is in the show notes.
A minority of maybe one in thinking that Watergate was a kind of a Tea Party. Actually, I was asked to write about Watergate right away by the New York Review, and I agreed, but I said I would write only if I could explain that it didn't amount to anything. In fact, it was pretty striking. The Watergate exposures came out at the very same time as the exposures of Cointelpro. Same time. Cointelpro was a massive government criminal operation directed against the population that went through 4 administrations, mainly Kennedy and Johnson, and Nixon started a little earlier. And it targeted virtually all critical thought and action for not only surveillance, but for disruption. It went way beyond the Snowden case. It went as far as literal political assassination. In fact, right at the time of Watergate, there was an exposure of the fact that in 1969, in one of the Cointelpro operations, this is an FBI operation. FBI is the National Political Police. So they were trying to destroy the black movements, and they really decimated them. Mostly the worst case, which had just appeared at the time of Watergate, was the assassination of Fred Hampton. Fred Hampton was a Black Panther, an organizer, a very successful organizer, no criminal charges, nothing like that. He was organizing in the Chicago ghettos. The FBI, under Cointelpro, wanted to assassinate him. They tried at first to incite a criminal gang in the ghetto, the Rangers, Blackstone Rangers, to kill him. They sent false letters to the heads of the Rangers written in kind of fake black dialect, which they decoded instantly. The FBI is not very smart, to try to tell them that, that Fred Hampton was going to go after them, so they'd react, but they didn't. What happened is that the FBI had implanted an informer who was Hampton's bodyguard, and they gave false information to the Chicago police about guns in the apartment. At 4 a.m., the police broke in, really a Gestapo-style raid, and just murdered him in his bed. That act alone just swamps all of the Watergate exposures. And interestingly, it was barely reported. And that's only one. I mean, they went a lot of other things under Cointelpro, which was far more serious than Watergate, and I think more serious than the NSA.
Okay, so like you said earlier, you mentioned a couple of names: Bonnie, Keith, John. So the full program of Cointelpro was exposed by a group of burglars who broke into this office in Pennsylvania, and their names are Bonnie Raines, Keith Forsyth, John Raines, Bob Williamson, William Davidon, Judy Feingold, Ralph Daniel, and Sarah Schumer. Forsyth and Williamson were also members of the Camden 28, a separate activist group which broke into a draft board to destroy documents in order to impede the Vietnam War draft and make an anti-war statement. And a quote that I really love from Keith Forsyth is, "If you're a white man in a suit, you can get away with anything." So I really enjoyed that as well. But in 2014, John Raines said that while returning from the burglary early in the morning, the group had stopped at a payphone, called a Reuters journalist, and delivered the following statement. So this is the original statement. On the night of March 8th, 1971, the Citizens Commission to investigate the FBI removed files from the Media Pennsylvania office of the FBI. These files will now be studied to determine 1. The nature and extent of surveillance and intimidation carried on by this office of the FBI, particularly against groups and individuals working for a more just, humane, and peaceful society. 2. To determine how much of the FBI's efforts are spent on relatively minor crimes by the poor and the powerless against whom they can get a more glamorous conviction rate. Instead of investigating truly serious crimes by those with money and influence which cause great damage to the lives of many people, crimes such as war profiteering, monopolistic practices, institutional racism, organized crime, and the mass distribution of legal drugs. Finally, 3, the extent of illegal practices by the FBI, such as eavesdropping, entrapment, and the use of provocateurs and informers. So the FBI had 200 agents working on this case and never solved it. And I really enjoyed in the 1971 documentary that once the agents who were like undercover infiltrating these groups were exposed publicly, they would have like block parties where they would sell portraits of the agents' faces to the public, like in these like block parties in the region. It was very, very funny. But democracy, yeah.
At one of the block parties in the movie, there was a whole bunch of people just sitting around singing "The FBI is coming to town" to the tune of "Santa Claus is coming to town," and they changed all the lyrics, and it's so good.
Like, this movie is such essential watching for anybody who knows the song "Cointelpro" by Propagandhi. And there's so many interviews online. There is a huge Democracy Now! Segment talking about the activist group. And you have to remember that the identity of these people was secret for 40 years. And Democracy Now! Did a huge segment commemorating 50 years of the break-in. And there's also a book called The Break-In by the investigative journalist Betty Metzger. So if you wanted to go check those out, I'll put links to the Democracy Now! Segment discussing 50 years of Cointelpro and also interviews with Betty Metzger about the book The Break-In. So much resources out there for people who want to know more.
So Betty Metzger, she's the one who they sent the first files to, right?
I believe so. Yeah,
she's a Washington Post reporter.
Yeah, there's so many details on this, which I think is one of the reasons why I haven't made this episode for such a long time, is because no matter what we say on this episode, we're going to miss stuff. So I'm sure that there's a lot we're missing that listeners out there are like, but what about this and what about that? Like, yes, there's so much more. Steve and I are not investigative journalists or professionals of any kind. We are a couple of yahoos
just talking about fruit
with fruit like these. So anyway, we got to talk about the lyrics of the song because it is really good. 10 out of 10 Propagandhi lyrics. Like, how is Chris Hanna this freaking smart? You know what I mean?
Lyrically, I think it's the strongest lyrical song on the record.
Interesting. Nice. Do you like this song?
I like
It's
this
not in
song.
either of our top fives. You know, we both
I
listed our top
like.
fives.
Do I love it? I don't love it. Do I like it? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's I am a big fan of where this song led me as a learner. You know what I mean? The references in the lyrics, incredible. The way that Chris tied this together in such a short lyrical song and how this led me down this massive rabbit hole is really the power of Propagandhi in general, which you and Keith and I have, discovered for years and years now doing this show. But man, what an amazing set of lyrics here. So we got the opening line. With friends like these, who the fuck needs Cointelpro? And you know what Cointelpro is, listeners, from all the clips and the discussions that we've just had. And there's like a saying in the world too, with friends like these, who needs enemies? Like indicating that like one's close associates can oftentimes prove more adversarial than one's opponents, which is funny when you think about the infiltration, the internal infiltration that people who present themselves as part of like a social activist group but are really like infiltrated FBI agents or informants. So it's with friends like these, who needs enemies? It's a really nice little play on that term, which I liked a lot.
It's that kind of thing comes up. Did you see I think it was the ALU movie. I think it was just called Union. Did you see that?
I don't think so, no.
About the Amazon plant in New York?
Oh, interesting. That sounds like something I should see.
It was really good. It was only available like for rent on their website or something to help fund the union stuff, but it was really it was well done. And but that was part of it, having their union busting people like infiltrating like the union meetings and stuff is.
Yeah, I mean, this is a very common tactic for so many labor movements, so many activist movements, where people are just feeding internal secrets to those in opposition of it. So genius opening line here by Chris. Next line, I'm punch drunk on the sickening cadence of iron fists in velvet gloves. Really cool idiom there. Iron fists and velvet gloves, using to describe someone who seems to be gentle, but is in fact forceful and very determined to do something else. The velvet glove also, I was looking this up, and it's a short range semi-active radar homing air-to-air missile designed by Cardi, I think or CARDE, and was produced by Canada Air starting in 1953. And 131 velvet gloves had been completed when the program was terminated in 1956, officially because of concerns about its ability to be launched at supersonic speeds. And, from the design was being developed and overtaken in the United States. But really interesting that the velvet glove leads to some type of missile as well, because as we all know, Chris is very interested in military history because of his growing up on Air Force bases in Canada. So I'm wondering if this is a reference to Chris's specific knowledge of growing up on Air Force bases in Canada for most of his life. So that was kind of an interesting little thought I had too.
Yeah, I mean it mentions so the Carde or however that's pronounced. I see in the notes here it's the DRDC Valcartier, so that's from Quebec.
Oh, gotcha. Cool. Yeah, I didn't know what that reference meant. So that's definitely interesting. Yeah, so the iron fists in velvet gloves is so fascinating. So then we have the Cheshire Grin line. As everybody out there knows, the Cheshire Grin is the self-satisfied, wide, mischievous smile used when someone is like grinning like ear to ear, and it comes from Alice in Wonderland and the Cheshire Cat character. And so whenever I think of someone with like a Cheshire grin, I think of how like the cat also disappears in Alice in Wonderland, right? how someone is in a group going to these activist meetings, showing up to like a Black Panther meeting, and then all of a sudden that person doesn't show up to a meeting one day, and then a raid happens. So it's like smiling, but then it's like that vanishing act as well. Like right when something happens, the Cheshire Cat disappears. So it's that smile to your face, but then disappear when something bad happens. Like, again, an amazing reference.
Started getting some of those vibes to just go back to the movie when that ninth person dropped out.
Mm-hmm.
I was
Freaky.
like, you guys got to pull the plug. You can't trust
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, and then that ninth person like showed up at their house later and was like, "I'm thinking about turning you in." And then when John Raines was like, "When that person left the house that night, our fate was in that person's hands." It's like, dang, because that person knew the whole plan from start to finish, didn't participate, but thought about turning them in. Because I'm sure there was some kind of reward
Yeah.
involved or something. I can't remember what the reason was, but yeah,
Because he was told that they had documents that threatened
That's
national
right.
security.
right, which wasn't true.
Absolutely not true.
Yeah. So that person was probably had the thumb and the boot pressed on them during the investigation and was kind of freaking out, which obviously, you know, people with power doing those types of investigations, they definitely have the power to rattle you, which you can see in any number of investigative you know, documentaries or television shows where someone is like being interrogated in like a closed room. I can't imagine. Then we have this next line, the crippling Judas kiss. So really cool. It's like kind of a reference to like the infiltrators of these groups. Because, you know, Judas was, you know, one of Jesus's disciples. And then whenever the Roman army didn't know exactly who Jesus was, Judas was the person who kissed Jesus to signal to the Romans exactly who Jesus was in order to lead to his arrest. So the Judas kiss being the infiltrators, going into the group, being inside the group, and then exposing them later is a reference to Jesus's arrest in the New Testament. So Propagandhi is like might be comparing the fake radicals or radicals who are only in it for attention or glory to Judas. So that's kind of a cool thought as well. To christen thee a sinking ship, and this next line is great, and I find myself singing this nonstop lately. The purpose of this new counterintelligence endeavor is to expose, disrupt, and misdirect, discredit, and other wise neutralize. Like I keep singing it. But
Great,
it's
great phrasing in that. Love it.
so good. And what's so funny about it is it's a direct quote from an FBI memo, which established the Cointelpro program. And so Chris quotes the FBI and turns it into this absolutely catchy and amazing earworm in this song. You know, and what's so crazy too about groups like the Black Panthers is like when all this was going on, there were like 800 people in the Black Panther Party in total. And so it's like they're disrupting and discrediting this teeny tiny little group through character assassination and infiltration. And these groups are so little, so little. Like it's like 800 people is like the amount of students in the high school down the street from me. Like that's nothing. And for the entire apparatus of the FBI to be so obsessed, singularly obsessed with such tiny groups is really wild.
I mean, the stuff just not related to this entirely, but in the movie when they were showing the investigation, I think in front of Congress, when they were talking about how the FBI was sending in the 34 days prior to Martin Luther King winning the Nobel Peace Prize, then sending him those harassing letters trying to convince him to kill himself.
Yeah.
Before he accepted the award. Insane.
Oh God, it's so dark. But yeah, then there's the lines, any parades that you can't jump in front of, any long years of hard work that ain't yours. And it's a really cool line. And it took me a little bit of time to decipher this. Like this is kind of a mysterious song. It takes a lot of thought to really kind of understand each individual line. But to me, it's like calling out like opportunists who try to like steal credit or like insert themselves into causes that they didn't build, which also then undermines them in like the process. So like they don't support movements unless it can lead to some type of profit for them or some kind of notoriety for them, and then they kind of like leech on something that's already previously established.
I like to think of that as John Terrying something.
Well, who is John Terry?
John Terry was a soccer/football player for Chelsea in the UK, and in my mind, he was always the guy that came in right at the end of something, had absolutely zero factor in them winning, and took all of the credit. When they won Champions League, John Terry was up front taking the credit, and he had no play in that. John, so it's been in my circle of friends and group for years now. Whenever you take credit for something that you had no part in, we refer to it as John Terrying.
Great example. Great example. And then we've got the sometimes I wonder if you just can't help yourself. Overhead, bloodthirsty vultures circle patiently. So it's people waiting to feast on the carcass of somebody's work or movement. And it's like, once something gets torn down, like say these burglars were discovered, they would be presented as the crazy ones. Do you know what I mean?
Oh.
Chris does, he refers to stuff like this in other songs, like Cop Just Out of Frame, where if he like self-immolated, he would be the one presented as like the one with the problem. And I want to also just say that that's kind of a interesting thing to remember. Aaron Bushnell, who self-immolated in 2024, who was an active serviceman in the United States Air Force, who set himself on fire in D.C. In order to protest the war in Gaza. But that's like the bloodthirsty vultures waiting to feast on the carcass and present something for their own benefit.
I mean, the whole discrediting and making people seem crazy and stuff. Like, I read a book. I'm trying to remember what the name of this book is, if I can get it up real quick here. It was about it was the book that was released in, I want to say, right around 2023 or 2022, about the UAP phenomenon in the UAP investigations.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that?
Mm-mm.
So it was the guy who was in charge of the UAP program at the Pentagon for decades, and so it was about all the tactics that the government used to discredit anyone who had a UAP sighting from Roswell on, to essentially make anyone who had some sort of experience, they basically made them seem like full-blown crazy people. And so like it's not as if it's the situation, and if these people would have been caught, like they would have gone through the ringer in the same way that like they literally made all of these people that saw UAPs so insane that people were being committed.
Yeah. It's a phenomenon that's very easy to paint other people as a problem in order to deflect from something that you're doing. It's huge projection. And, obviously this is the norm now in the United States, where we're currently seeing all of the protests going on in Los Angeles and the Marines being deployed against the United States population. All of these things are totally predictable, in my opinion. Whenever I saw that, like, the soldiers of the U.S. military were being deployed into a major American city, I was like, oh, duh, of course that was what was going to happen. Like, that doesn't surprise me at all. But yeah, that's a very common tactic to be done, and it's very scary. But then we've got the few more lines here. They offer condolences and whisper bitter eulogies. This is so interesting to me too, because it's like insincere grief after the damage of something is done. So people are mourning something they helped destroy, possibly for appearances, but also because it gives them attention. You know what I mean?
I mean, isn't that the definition of thoughts and prayers?
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
Exactly.
anytime, people are killed in gun violence, and then you have the NRA being like thoughts and prayers.
Yeah. It's really funny too. I keep seeing that Onion meme from the Onion pop up. It's like citizens our NRA forgets to rise up against tyrannical government overreach or something. Yeah, it's disgusting. We disgust me. I am disgusted every single day, nonstop, all of the time, pretty much. And then we've got yes, quote unquote comrades come as thick as thieves. And the 1971 documentary, dude, I just love that movie. I'm so glad that I found it and that we watched it. It's so funny. I love when they were posting the huge photos of the undercover FBI agents who got exposed as being the infiltrators.
They're
'Cause
and the
it's
way they talk about the guys being like, they could not be wearing worse, like more generic, like protester costumes.
yeah. It's like hello. It's like that hello, fellow children. That Steve Buscemi thing.
Yeah.
Where he shows up and he's like obviously 47 years old and he's got a skateboard and a backwards hat. Hello, fellow kids.
No,
It's
they were just so funny. Every one of these FBI people was brutally obvious.
Yeah. But according to Chris here, they've got another thing coming, which I don't know who else in the world besides Chris Hanna can weave in a direct quote of an FBI memo and the lyrics of Judas Priest into one set of lyrics, but
And have it organically flow.
crazy, right? He's got Bible references here. He's got Alice in Wonderland references here. He's got a direct quote of the FBI. He's got a direct quote from freaking Judas Priest. Like, this song has barely any lyrics. And it's got like a reference to a missile system that was designed in Canada. Like, this song is completely insane. The more I think about it, like, it just opens up. It's like a universe within it. And it's only like 20 lines long.
For like the lyric part of the song is under 2 minutes.
Ridiculous. Every single line is just a wormhole that just opens up. Did you listen to the demo version?
Oh yeah, I've listened to the demo version.
Yeah, it's the 2021 Today's Empire's reissue has the demo version of this song. Slightly different lyrics too, and slightly different structure of the song. It's got a super long and slow middle section in the demo version, which is totally worth hearing, but I'm really glad got axed somehow for the final version. So cool that both versions exist, and the lyrics are slightly different in the demo version. So here's the lyrics. I have not been able to decipher them fully because they're not published anywhere, but here's the lyrics. With friends like these, who the fuck needs Cointelpro? I'm punch drunk on the sickening cadence of iron fists and velvet gloves. The purpose of this new counterintelligence endeavor is to expose, disrupt, misdirect, discredit, and otherwise neutralize. And then it ends there, and then it goes into that long, slow part, and then it comes back in, and then the lyric is, I think, de facto thought police. And then there's something I can't hear, and then it's the acronym, and then yes, comrades come as thick as thieves, and then there's something I can't hear, and then it has the word results. But then you've got another thing coming with friends like these. Who needs Cointelpro? So there are some slight modifications in the lyrics in the demo version.
Took out the 1984 reference.
Yeah, like there's no bloodthirsty vultures. There's no bitter eulogies. There's no Cheshire grin. So a lot of really cool lyrical references from literature and from history, allegedly. If you're thinking of the the Judas section as like factual documented history, there's a lot of literary references that go in later that didn't make the demo version. So this song was being still fully developed, it seems like, right up until the recording.
I mean, I think I don't, I'm not surprised because it's something that obviously is going to take lots of refinement to get like where the final version of the song is, like to nail that on a first try would have been near impossible. Like obviously that's something that had to be workshopped and played around with because like the references are so specific and they fit in such a unique way that there's no way anyone's doing that on the first try.
Yeah. So I sent you two live version which you watched. I sent you a live version from the Fest in 2016 and a version from 2004 performed as a trio in Brighton, England. Tell me your thoughts on the two live performances that I sent you.
The 2004 trio version was my favorite of the song of the two.
Super good.
By far. I felt like the Fest 2016 or 2015, whatever that was. I mean, I didn't really enjoy that clip much at all. I felt like it was a, dare I say, soulless performance. And that's not entirely on them. It's like the crowd looked like they were 100 feet away from them. Like there was no vibe in the room. Like it just was like, I don't know. It just, that's not for me.
Yeah, that's why I'm avoiding shows like that now, I think, because I always get so worked up by a lineup for a festival or something, and then I go and I'm very underwhelmed a lot of the time. And I leave feeling really drained and exhausted now. But hey, that's just part of aging too. But the Fest one had a really good view of Jord, the performance of Jord, and he's just so wonderful. So those are a couple of cool versions that are out there online. This song also opens live from Occupied Territory, Propagandhi's like official live album that they put out on G7. Came out on DVD. The DVD sections can be watched fully on YouTube, but the full live album can still be purchased on Propagandhi's Bandcamp. So go check that out. And it's cool that they're opening shows with this song too. Like what a bizarre choice for opener.
And if I could just clarify my stance when I said soulless before everyone jumps at me here.
No one's gonna jump at you. We're 5 hours into this thing now.
In my opinion, this era of Propagandhi songs work best in a small, overcrowded setting with people everywhere, like a very intense, raw like format. And that Fest show was the doctor's office of atmosphere.
Yeah, the recording is clear. So if anyone wants to hear the band performing it relatively recently in their career, the recording of the Fest video is very clear, crystal clear for the listener.
And even after the first song, Chris even says, "Wow, you guys are really far away."
He did say that, didn't he? Did they open? I think that's the one where they opened with Dear Coach's Corner. I've seen that set very many times at this point in the last 5 years of doing this show.
It's just like sterile and it's not for me.
Yeah. So I found a YouTube comment, which I liked. It said, "It's amazing how Propagandhi manages to combine so many different elements in their music in such a great way. Great melody, guitar riffs, such an important subject on lyrics like this one. The music is just pure energy. Plus the end of the song, the melody feels like comfort for the soul. Can't really describe, but as a black man who grew up listening to this band, this song in particular still hits different." So that was a cool comment I found because of so much of Cointelpro's focus was on the Black Panther Party. To find that comment was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So, to me, a major takeaway is that Propagandhi has asked listeners to learn about the dark complexities of the world for for 40 years at this point, since we're careening towards 40 years of this band's existence. And I think it's a treat to feature some of the voices from the clips that we played on the podcast, like from the Noam Chomsky segment, from some of the interviews that I played from that clip from Today's Empires, Tomorrow's Ashes CD-ROM. It's nice to be able to include those in a new form 20 plus years after the record came out. And, as they say later on in this album, better lives have been lived in the margins, locked in the prisons, and lost on the gallows than have ever been enshrined in palaces. Like, I find the lives of, Bonnie and John Raines and Keith Forsyth and everybody far more impressive than like the director of the FBI, who is sowing further division in the population of the United States. which we see how things like this have led us to where we are today. If you can't connect this kind of content to what is going on in the United States today, then I think that you're on the other side of how I see the world.
I think you would show not. I don't know what his knowledge is with regards to past history and stuff, because he seems like an idiot at literally every stretch of the world. But Trump, I don't know if he knows about COINTELPRO or anything, but I guarantee you, if someone explained to him what it was, he'd be like, yeah, let's do that again.
Oh, totally. And they probably are. You know, I'm sure that this is all happening right now. The ACLU has released a bunch of reports talking about Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act and the Executive Order 12333, which resulted in mass collection of private data. We've seen huge influx and stuff like this in the latest administration. These things are only worsening. And to be a person talking about this on the internet within the United States really sucks. But I'm continuing forward with the project just because. So hopefully that works out for me. You know, stuff like COINTELPRO. Yeah.
Let's be real. No one from the FBI is listening this far into this episode.
Oh, God. Though we've bored them so much. Sorry. So stuff like COINTELPRO has always been presented as being there to help the American people, but actually rots us from within, and it leads to decades of resentment, distrust, and a weaker foundation that continues to find new ways across generations to deepen the surveillance and police state. So that's where we are. You want to rate the song?
I'm going to give this song a 3.5.
I'm going to give this song a 3. The lyrics, 5 out of 5, no question. But I'm going to give this song a 3 because there's just so many other songs on this record that I like quite a lot more than COINTELPRO. But what an important and impressive song from a lyric writing standpoint, for sure.
I wonder what percentage of people that listened to this record when it first came out, what percentage of the people listening to the record, this was their first exposure to the term COINTELPRO?
Almost guarantee it. Unless you were like a professor who was a fan of the band already, I would put money down on 97% of first-time listeners learning about COINTELPRO from this band. That's my hunch. And I would love to hear comments from people if they hear this episode where they're like, if this was the introduction to COINTELPRO, because it certainly was for me. I had never heard of this.
It's the same for me. So yeah, if all 2 people who've listened this far can let us know that if it was your first exposure to COINTELPRO, let us know, because I'm genuinely curious if the average person knew. I mean, I was, I think I was 20 when this record came out.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
I mean, I wasn't knowing any of that at that point.
Yeah, I was 17, I think.
What year did this come out again?
2001.
Okay, I was 21.
Yeah. So anyway, fun episode. I definitely hope that people will go check out some of those links that I've mentioned. I'm just going to randomly paste them into the show notes, so have at it. And Steve, thanks for joining me to talk about the last song ever from today's Empires, Tomorrow's Ashes on Unscripted Moments, a podcast about Propagandhi. What a pleasure.
What a wild ride this one was. This is could be like a 2.5 hour episode.
I think it's going to be longer than that. Anyway, hope you made it this far. Thanks for listening.
Go Bills.
Go Bills.
Goodman with Juan Gonzalez. 50 years ago this week, a group of activists staged one of the most stunning acts of defiance of the Vietnam War era. On March 8th, 1971, 8 activists, including a cab driver, a daycare director, 2 professors, broke into an FBI office in Media, Pennsylvania, and stole every document they found. They wanted to document how FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover was spying on citizens and actively suppressing dissent. The break-in occurred as much of the nation was fixated on a boxing match between Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier, which was billed as the fight of the century. The identity of the burglars would remain a mystery for over 40 years. Soon after stealing the documents, the activists, calling themselves the Citizens Commission to Investigate the FBI, began leaking shocking details about FBI abuses to the media. The documents exposed Cointelpro, the FBI's secret counterintelligence program, a global, clandestine, unconstitutional practice of surveillance, infiltration, and disruption of groups engaged in protest, dissent, and social change. Targets included the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, the Black Panthers, the American Indian Movement, the Young Lords, anti-war groups, black booksellers, and other groups. The leaked documents triggered congressional investigations, increased oversight, and the eventual passage of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. The FBI never knew who was involved in the break-in until 2014, when several of the burglars made their identity public to coincide with the publication of The Burglary, a book by former Washington Post reporter Betty Metzger, who'd reported on the leaked documents back in '71. In 2014, Betty Metzger appeared on Democracy Now!
One of the things that I remember most from those files was the truly blanket surveillance of African-American people that was described. It was in Philadelphia, but it also prescribed national programs. It was quite stunning. First, it described the surveillance. It took place in every place where people would gather, churches, classrooms, stores down the street, just everything. But it also specifically prescribed that every FBI agent was supposed to have an informer just for the purpose of coming back every 2 weeks and talking to them about what they had observed about Black Americans. And in Washington, D.C. at the time, that was 6 informers for every FBI agent informing on Black Americans. The surveillance was so enormous that it led various people, rather sedate people in editorial offices and in Congress, to compare it to the Stasi, the dreaded secret police of East Germany.
3 of the burglars also appeared on Democracy Now! Back in 2014 in one of their first joint interviews. Keith Forsyth served as designated lockpicker during the break-in. He hoped the break-in would speed the end of the Vietnam War.
War was escalating and not de-escalating. And I think what really pushed me over the edge was shortly after the invasion of Cambodia, there were 4 students killed at Kent State and 2 more killed at Jackson State. And I'm sorry, I think I'd have this down after all these years. And that really pushed me over the edge, that it was time to do more than just protest, than just march with a sign.
John Raines was another one of the burglars. At the time of the break-in, he was a professor of religion at Temple University.
The problem was J. Edgar Hoover was untouchable. He was a national icon. I mean, he had presidents who were afraid of him. The people that we had elected to oversee J. Edgar Hoover's FBI were either enamored of him or terrified of him. Nobody was holding him accountable. And that meant that somebody had to get objective evidence of what his FBI was doing. And that led us to the idea that Bill Avedon suggested to us. Let's break into an FBI office, get their files, and get what they're doing in their own handwriting.
That was John Raines speaking on Democracy Now! In 2014. He died in 2017. Raines' wife, Bonnie Raines, also helped break into the FBI office in Media, Pennsylvania 50 years ago. At the time of the break-in, John and Bonnie had 3 young children. She's joining us now from her home in Philadelphia. We are also joined by Paul Coates, the founder and director of Black Classic Press and BCP Digital Printing. He's a former member and defense captain of the Black Panther Party in Baltimore. As a black bookseller, he was targeted by the FBI as part of its Cointelpro, its counterintelligence program. And yes, he is also the father of the acclaimed writer Ta-Nehisi Coates. We welcome you both to Democracy Now! Bonnie, you were the one who cased the joint. Is that right? Who went to these Media FBI offices, that's Media, Pennsylvania, beforehand to get a sense of the blueprints of the 2 rooms, whatever it was.
That's right. I mean, we had cased the exterior environment, so we knew what the police patrols were, but we had to get inside the offices to see whether there were alarm systems and to see what the layout of the offices were, where the doors were that we hoped we could get through. And so I had to call and say that I was a Swarthmore College student doing research on opportunities for women in the FBI, and I wondered if I could have an interview with the head of the office. And they very graciously gave me an appointment, and I showed up trying to look not at all like my usual identity. I disguised my appearance as much as I possibly could, but they were very gracious and gave me a half an hour or so, and that gave me the opportunity to get the layout of the office, to see that there were no alarms, to see that the file cabinets were not even locked, and to check out a second door that we might need to use to get through on the night of the burglary.
And Bonnie, you told Will Bunch at the Philadelphia Inquirer in a recent interview that 50 years ago we were criminals and now we're heroes. Could you talk about how your decision to get involved in this at the time? You were 29 years old, a mother of 3.
Well, my husband and I had been involved in the draft resistance movement, the so-called Catholic left, previously, going into draft boards in the middle of the night and removing draft files to destroy the files and try to disrupt the draft system. So we like to say that we got our burglary skills from nuns and priests. But when all of the protests against the war in Vietnam were not making any difference, and we realized that the government was lying to citizens about the war, we thought that we needed to take a different kind of step in civil disobedience and get proof to show what FBI agents were doing in the Philadelphia area things that were unconstitutional, immoral, and illegal. And the only way to do that was to get our hands on documents. So that it seemed like a rational thing to do to get the truth out to the American public.
And I'd like to bring Paul Coates into the conversation and ask you, Paul, what, from your perspective, your involvement in the Black Panther Party at the time, what the group looked like, and what the impact of this break-in, these revelations about Cointelpro had on you and your organization?
You know, the large impact, I think, at the time was we already knew that we were being infiltrated. We knew that provocateurs were all throughout. We knew that the FBI had us under constant surveillance. But I don't think anyone at the time really knew the full extent of the program, of Cointelpro. We saw the surveillance, we saw the interference and the setups that were being done as acts that the government, as a broad government, was doing. But the break-in actually, I like to think of it as put flesh to the bones of what became known as Cointelpro. And they did it in a way that, like I guess like they intended to do. They did it with the FBI's own documents. They named people, they named places, and that documentation not only served us then, but the documentation serves us. It continues to serve us today, and I think that's the major impact. It made visible what we knew was there but could not really see.
I mean, in fact, this was the first time, wasn't it, that Cointelpro was being made known, Bonnie, these documents that you were putting out everywhere. And then, Paul, this whole story of not only the FBI's war on the Black Power movement, but specifically, and this directly related to you, Black-owned bookstores, why they saw Black-owned bookstores like yours as such a target.
Yeah, this is true. I mean, I think a lot of that comes out of certainly the FBI history and in following socialist groups and knowing that the bookstores were critical information centers, as they were in our community. And the store we established certainly was, because that was its intent. It was intended to be an information center, particularly for people, not just Panthers, but people who were incarcerated in jail, coming out of jail and becoming contributing members of the community. We felt we could do that with information. And certainly we came under a lot of pressure from the FBI, a lot of pressure from the state and the city at the time, who saw this, perceived this as a threat. The very thought that information, the very thought that knowledge could equip people to be better in their community and contributors in their community was a threat to them.
So, Juan, at the beginning of this story, we talked about the people who are targeted, Black Panthers, anti-war movement, peace activists, and the Young Lords. You're one of the co-founders of the Young Lords. Can you talk about what you understood at the time?
Well, I think what Paul is saying about we understood that there were agents within our organizations, but we never understood how systematic and how widespread it was. And I recall particularly, this is about a year before the break-in of the FBI office in Media, Pennsylvania. I was traveling with another Young Lord member, we thought secretly, to Puerto Rico to look at the possibility of opening up new branches. And we're on the plane heading to San Juan. We suddenly see a young African-American attorney who we knew from legal aid in East Harlem. And he came over, sat by us, started joking. And we said to him, so Bobby, what do you do? You're in legal aid. Why are you going down to Puerto Rico? And he said, well, I don't work for legal aid anymore. I work for the U.S. Justice Department. And I've been assigned to the two of you. And I want you to know, he looked at us directly in the eyes, and he said, I want you to know that every second that you are in Puerto Rico, you are going to be tailed by the agents of the SEEK. That's the Puerto Rico equivalent of the Red Squad in Puerto Rico. And wherever you go in Puerto Rico, we're going to be there. And sure enough, they were always not only following us, but interviewing anybody who we talked to or we met with, because they saw the need to appear to be everywhere. And I want to ask Paul, because people don't realize the psychological impact it had on these organizations to know that there were agents within them, but not know who they were. And often people were targeted who were innocent people, but were mistaken for agents. And the real agents were still providing information on a regular basis and creating dissension within the groups.
Yeah, Juan, you're so right. You're so on. It was like a double whammy, because on the one hand, you'd have agents who would make themselves known. And then you knew there were plenty of other agents who were unknown, but you would, let's say if you're doing something today, information on that would be broadcast in multiple ways the next day. And so you know someone from the inside did it. And Juan, you probably have this experience as well. This is, certainly Cointelpro had its impact when the events were taking place. But now we're talking about 50 years later, 5 decades later, Juan, and we're still trying to figure out who were agents at the time. You have to, it's that going on, but also the rumors that were started, the identification of people who weren't, like you're saying, who weren't agents, but they were labeled as agents. And even today, among comrades in the Panther Party, you'll have a conversation with someone, a name will come up, and you say, well, you know he was a snitch, don't you? And or he was an agent, don't you? And that may not be the case at all. We're still living through and picking through the rumors that literally split our movement at the time. We're still living through those rumors now, and they still split us.
So I wanted to also bring in Bonnie Raines to talk about the latest member of the Media Eight, the burglars, including you, who has just come forward in a piece in the San Francisco Chronicle. 50 years after an FBI office burglary, a San Rafael man reveals his role. And it says, before the Pentagon Papers, before WikiLeaks, before Edward Snowden's NSA files, a group of 8 Vietnam War protesters teamed up to steal FBI records from a Pennsylvania office. And it goes on to say, Ralph Daniels squeezed himself through the door, looked around the dark room. They'd cased this small FBI office in Philadelphia suburb of Media for months. Now he was inside. Rows of file cabinets beckoned. This was the moment the group of 8 had planned. They'd long suspected FBI malfeasance, were convinced these records would prove it. Daniel was 26 at the time, rolled out the first metal cabinet drawer, scooped up the files, threw them into a suitcase. His gloved hand shook. The burglars had to hurry. They'd chosen March 8th, 1971, because Muhammad Ali's title fight against Joe Frazier at Madison Square Garden would keep most of the country and world, and most importantly, FBI agents and police, glued to closed-circuit screens and radios for a few hours. One of the intruders could hear the broadcast in nearby apartments, so they thought that the sound of the fight would cover your actions. Is that right, Bonnie? And were you surprised to see that Ralph Daniel has come forward?
Well, I'm delighted that Ralph has. He played a key role in the burglary, and he was reluctant to come forward earlier because he was afraid that it would affect his professional life. But he's always been in communication with us since 2014, and it's great to have him be able to tell his story now, which is significant. We scooped up every single document, I think about 1,000 documents. We didn't leave anything behind. And going back to what we were talking about a few minutes ago in the broadcast, one of the memos that we discovered, a document said that agents should increase the paranoia among the left to have them believe that there's an FBI agent behind every mailbox. So they wanted to give this impression that everyone everywhere was under surveillance, and no one could believe that their constitutional rights would be protected.
And Bonnie, we only have about 30 seconds, but could you, the lessons for today for the Black Lives Matter movement and other activists of this Cointelpro era?
Well, we've just come through a Trump era, and I think we saw the effects of a lack of transparency and accountability. And now we really have to insist that the powers that be are transparent and accountable. And it's up to the average citizen to pay attention, be informed, and be vigilant, and then call the powers that be to account for their decision.
We're going to have to leave it there, and I thank you so much for being with us. Bonnie Raines, one of the 1971 break-in burglars at the FBI office in Media, Pennsylvania, and Paul Coates, founder and director of Black Classic Press. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez.